disregard. Handful of complaints, but I can't help the fact that everyone can see these scars. I am what I want you to want, what I want you to feel. But it's like no matter what I do, I can't convince you to just believe this is real. So let go, watching you turn your back like you always do. Face away and pretend that I'm not, but I'll be here because you're all that I got. I can't face away as if before. Don't turn your back on me. I won't be ignored. Time won't take this damage anymore. Don't turn your back on me. I won't be ignored. I'm a little bit insecure, a little unconfident.
Welcome back. Here we go. Episode 26. True North, episode 26, the investment grade Bitcoin equity podcast. We are back. We are here talking about MSTR. We're going to talk about Bitcoin treasury companies, long teeth. We're going to talk about leverage, and maybe I'll pop us up on the screen. There we go. We are back. Welcome back. Episode 26. We're going to talk about leverage, Bitcoin buys, MSTR Bitcoin buys. Talk a little bit about True North World, Strategy World, S&P 500. On the horizon, this Financial Times video, which I think is pretty hilarious. Everybody's having a good time with that one. The Bitcoin treasury companies that have hit the scene, and dive into Strike and Strife a little bit and what it looks like making a market if we've got a little bit of time at the end. So without further ado, Tim has a guest in the office, and maybe we'll pass it over to Tim for not financial advice.
Right. I'm Tim Kotzman. The entire thing you're gonna see in this live stream is only for informational and educational and entertainment purposes only.
Not financial advice.
It's not financial advice.
Back to you, Jeff.
Beautiful. Excellent. Thank you, Tim Kotzman and LaDoger in the New York office. They've got the pulse of the New York market. So yeah, as they mentioned, none of this is financial advice. We appreciate the time. For those that are new here, so True North, this podcast is the investment grade Bitcoin equity podcast. And the idea with this podcast is that we get together, talk about MSTR, we talk about Bitcoin treasury companies, and we talk about what's happening in the market. This is an incredibly complicated trade, looking at MSTR and these other companies. And we are at the knife's edge of what's happening in the industry. So we are very invested in what's happening with these companies. And we have been very invested in these companies for a very long time. And that's why we're here to talk about it. This is not a simple trade. This is not a simple thesis, buy GameStop to bury the shorts and all the hedge funds. This is a new monetary shift. This is shifting into a digital capital era and blazing the trail of this new financial frontier. So we are all incredibly invested in what's going on here. There have been some interesting thoughts that have been passed around in the community that we are a paid arm of strategy. That is definitely not the case. We haven't taken in a single dollar, aside from our sponsors that we got this last week at our True North World event, which we broke even on, by the way. We have not taken in any money. Strategy's not paying us. Nobody's paying us any money. And to emphasize why that is, what you can see on the screen here, this is the price of MSTR since, February 15th, 2023 through May 14th, 2025. The stock itself has gone up 1,317% in that time horizon. And many of us on the stream were on leverage during this time period. So we have returns that are greater than the 1,300% that is outlined here. Just to put this in perspective, MSTR in February of 2023 was about a $4 billion company. Now it's about a $114 billion company. The reason that we are talking about this is because Strategy can go from a $114 billion company to a $1 trillion company and a $5 trillion company. There's going to be a ton of confusion within the market with people, as we've seen today with the Financial Times video that they've put out to market. There's a bunch of confusion out there and misunderstanding of the asset, and misunderstanding of how the Bitcoin market is operating. And we're here to clear that up and provide some perspective because we care a lot and we've been at the front of this trade for a really long time. Anybody else have anything to add on that? No.
Yeah, it's easy. It's easy for people to say like we're paid, whatever, and that's not to say we aren't getting paid. I mean, we're doing our best to advance strategy and our cause, and we will accept sponsors for future events like we have in the past. But yeah, the fact of the matter is we are not getting rich off this.
It's fun. And
Yeah.
the purpose of it, the purpose of True North, the whole goal of it, like while I put this together, was we were going to have these conversations, all of us on the screen and all of us that have been in past episodes, we were all having conversations separately on MSTR and what was going on in the Bitcoin space. And the goal was, okay, if we're just going to have these calls about what's going on, why don't we just do it externally so everybody else can listen in and we can talk about what's going on. And we can talk about what we care about and how the market's moving and what we're seeing. One other thing I will share on my screen here. This is a slide that I gave in my keynote at True North World this last week, and this is the formation of True North. Just to give people that weren't there a little bit of background and history on the creation of this group. And back in October, so October 12th, I sent this email to everybody in this crew here. This was the call to action, MSTR True North. The price of Bitcoin is at 63,000. MSTR was at $210. And the goal of True North was to be an unwavering, impenetrable beacon of factual information, because this is the biggest story in all of finance. And there was, going to be a meteoric rise. We all saw that there's going to be a meteoric rise in MSTR and Bitcoin, and there's going to be sustained hysteria and bewilderment. That's where this bewilderment has really originated, and we knew that this was going to change drastically. The little screenshot over on the right-hand side, this is October 9th. The price of MSTR was $188. Bitcoin is 60,000. I knew that we were about to get into price discovery, so I put on my whiteboard a group of people. I gathered the crew, which has evolved to where we are today, and had to put a group together that all has different diversified backgrounds with different perspectives and bringing something different to the environment. So that is how we got here. And I think that's helpful context when, there are people saying that we're paid shills and just a marketing arm of strategy. It's definitely not the case. We're just incredibly interested in this stuff. I'm a finance nerd. I worked in finance for 11 years. And I quit my job to keep following this because it is the most interesting story in all of finance. And I think it's going to be the most hated rally of all time. So that's where we're at.
Yeah. The notion of being a hired like hand of strategy is kind of funny. All of us, as you mentioned, we're doing this for fun, and we're just trying to share that fun with other people. Some people think it's not fun, some people think it is. But the accusations that have just come out lately, they're just kind of weird to me.
Yeah, they're a bit strange.
The timing seems odd as well. But I think a lot of it is because the work we've put in has gotten eyes on us. We did True North World, and we've now been validated, right? And with that validation, I think people are drawing some very, very false correlations with that. And also, I think there are a lot of people that are looking for clout and are just trying to latch on to what the community has been doing in a negative way.
Yeah, and I saw this coming. This same exact thing happened with GameStop. There was a bunch of confusion, and the market was completely discombobulated. You had one person that everybody in the entire community, in the retail community, was following, right? Everybody had their eyes on Roy and Kitty and his daily updates and his posts. And we're like, oh my God, he's still there. He's up 250 million. And everybody was just following this one guy, which is a huge stress and press, like a ton of pressure on one single person. So the idea being here, this is a sustainable movement with an equity, with adopting digital capital into the future. And we all have different backgrounds, different skill sets to provide perspective on what this can be and how this can potentially advance into the future. So the goal being, we are a team, and all of that outside FUD, there's going to be attacks on us. There will be future attacks on us regardless. And our goal is to just stay the course, stay at the front, and be on top of everything that's happening in the industry. We want to be not on top of leverage in the market, Bitcoin treasury companies, MSTR, evolution of securitization, how the securities are moving, who's buying the securities, what does the market evolution look like, all of those things. And that's the point. That's why we're here. So a little bit of extra time to spend on that, but that's the background. And so that quells some of those concerns. I think we will have sponsors at some point in the future. Maybe we'll put a marquee sponsor down in the right-hand corner, because we are building a business, and I think there's a lot of opportunity to capitalize on here. So go ahead, Tim.
Yeah,
Real quick, on the positive side, there are additional people I've seen pop up over the last couple of days, maybe a week, but really over the last couple of days that are doing great analysis on strategy. And that's
Totally.
awesome. Like, it's going to take all of us in the community. And I mean, it's just awesome. I mean, anyone can put on an orange tie and, get a microphone or not and record something from their basement. And I mean, it's pretty cool, right? And if it's something that's interesting,
Like Gladiator.
like well, or right. But I mean, Saylor retweeted, someone that did some really interesting analysis, right? So make your voice heard, whether it's a long post like Ben Workman or it's a video. Put yourself out there and really encourage people to do that. I think it's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it was Adam Livingston, just been putting out incredible content. He was just doing long form posts. I think he got a microphone and a video camera. He's like, all right, I'm going to do it live. So maybe we'll get him out here on the pod one of these days, and we'll continue to bring people in. The goal is to, again, we're moving this thing forward. We're staying in front, and there's definitely room for we are all True North. I saw somebody posted that. We are all True North. Cool. All right, let's jump into the leverage update because I think that is important. And I will share my screen again. Boom, here we go. Wait, let's go with this one. There we go. Okay, so leverage update. And we do this weekly, and I think it's helpful to be on top of this. So this is MSTR financial leverage. So as of 5/14, which is today, Bitcoin held on balance sheet. So they've got 568,000 Bitcoin held on balance sheet, Bitcoin price of 103,000. Assets held about 58.5 billion, debt of 8.2, preferred stock of 1.7. So net capital held on balance sheet is $48 billion. $48 billion of clear capital. That would be around the 200th largest company in the world, right behind Ross Dress for Less. If you were to just put the capital next to all of these other companies in the market, just to put that in perspective.
Next to clothing.
Next to clothing. Yeah. cheap clothing. And the liability asset, so the leverage ratio is about 14%. This is near an all-time low for strategy. So if you're looking at the balance sheet, this is their financial strength is stronger than it's ever been. So you're looking at a 14% leverage ratio, debt coverage multiple of 7.1. So they have 7 times the amount of assets than they do the debt on the balance sheet. The Bitcoin price needed for the assets to be less than the liabilities around $14,457. And that's before there's any issue. But it has to be at that price for an extended period of time before there's even any issues. I can say for certain, if the price of Bitcoin is down at $14,000, I'm selling literally everything in my house. I'm selling my Pelotons, my weights. Like, I'm selling everything to buy as much Bitcoin as humanly possible. So I think many of us would be doing the same. I also have this column here. This is a pro forma basis. So about $3.2 billion of the current convertible debt is in the money. So what that means is the convertible debt is trading as equity. So it can be converted at a future point in time, which means that debt would effectively be wiped off of the balance sheet. So it would no longer exist. The reason that works is because the convertible bond traders are shorting the stock up front. They short about 70% of the stock, and they're arbing out the stock through the entirety of the holding. And so there's a high likelihood that if the debt does convert into equity, all of that debt would just cancel out the short interest that they're holding against the stock, and there would be effectively like a net neutral impact on the stock. So the pro forma leverage ratio, about $5 billion of debt, 1.7 billion of preferred stock. You're looking at a leverage ratio of about 8.6% and a debt coverage of 11.7. So again, all-time lows here. The MSTR is stronger than it's ever been. Got a ton of Bitcoin held on balance sheet. And if you look forward to a future point in time, I just put a projection in here. If strategy is holding 600,000 Bitcoin on balance sheet, let's say the Bitcoin price is 140,000. If they raised another, $7 billion of debt from today, and the Bitcoin price goes to 140,000, you're looking at still around an 18% leverage ratio, which is below the 20 to 30% target that they have for managing their portfolio moving forward. Anybody else have anything to add here?
Number go up.
Yeah. So there's been a lot of focus here in this recent time period about raising capital, raising debt, and I want to hit on this real quick before we switch and go into other topics or talk about True North World. The convertible debt, and if you compare there's multiple types of debt that MSTR can raise. They can raise convertible debt, and then they can also raise debt via these preferred instruments, Strike and Strife. And they brought up the word in the last earnings call of torque. And I think the word torque is incredibly useful here in comparing these two. If you look at the convertible debt, when the convertible debt is issued, the convertible debt holders short the stock immediately. They short about 70% of the stock immediately. So that dilution impact of the debt it is hit like right away. There's about 70% more shares that are in the market, trading in the market like immediately. So it's nearly just as impactful as the ATM. It's about 30% less impactful than the ATM. Now, when you compare that to Strike or Strife, when MSTR raises capital from Strike or Strife via the ATM or they've got the ATM on Strike, but no ATM on Strife yet. When they raise capital through the preferred instruments, there is no immediate dilution on the stock. There is no there is a potential dilution on the horizon if somebody decides to exercise shares, or what's it called, convert shares at a future point in time. But I think there's very little incentive to convert shares to a future point in time. So when you think about what type of debt you want to raise here, it is much more valuable for strategy to go on a crusade and a campaign to raise as much preferred stock as humanly possible, because it's significantly more accretive than any of the convertible bond instruments on the balance sheet. That's because there's no dilution, right away. There is a debt covenant, effectively, right? You've got to pay the dividend into perpetuity, but there's no that dilution component. So that's why there's torque, significant torque, because it's a more accretive leverage to put on your balance sheet. And that market is significantly larger, right? I think the convertible bond market is about $3 trillion. The fixed income market itself is about $300 trillion. And I think the real estate market is another $300 trillion. That's like $600 trillion of capital that may be interested in those types of instruments. However, you need to build that market, and that building that market takes time.
Yeah, it does. And I think the cool thing about the Strike and the Strife is the direct bet strategy is making on the compounding annual growth rate of Bitcoin into the future. Like, it's a very simple idea, right? If you're selling a preferred share that you're paying out at 10% annualized coupon, the bet you're making by porting that into Bitcoin, which they are effectively collateralizing it with their Bitcoin, is that Bitcoin will outpace that significantly. So I think that's kind of the very base level idea of why it's accretive. Why is it accretive? Because they're taking on liabilities, which they pay out at 10% annually, and they're putting an asset on their balance sheet that they can then use as collateral and issue more securities against. That's compounding at, in theory, 30% annually. So that's the Bitcoin torque. And then obviously the earnings call was a great kind of masterclass in how that actually looks when you graph it forward.
Yep.
Hey, Jeff.
And the thing about,
Sorry, real quick, Jeff, when you say building a market, and I've been guilty of this myself, it's almost like, well, okay, the shelf is there, the ticker's there. Why isn't this going faster? Would you be willing to share some of your personal experience with building a market?
Yeah.
I thought what you shared privately was so cool and helpful for me.
Yeah, absolutely. So building a market, in my past, I've built a market before in a risk market. So my prior life, I was a reinsurance broker. So I sold tranches of risk to insurance companies and reinsurance companies across the globe. I was primarily focused on wildfire business. So an incredibly volatile peril that is really hard to manage if you've got an insurance portfolio. And there was this unique opportunity in the market where these utility companies were being deemed liable for these very large wildfire events, particularly in California. They had lines that would fall over, and they were deemed negligent for maintaining the lines. And so then they had to pay out, anywhere from $4 to $8 billion of loss from these large wildfire events. Now, when those utility companies went back to the market to get their liability coverage, their liability insurance for the next year, the insurance industry said, we're not going to cover wildfire at all, just point blank period. So there was a problem, and the problem was these huge utility companies needed coverage for this potential liability. So I went to the reinsurance market and I created new tranches of risk that never existed before in the market. And I was able to, I modeled them into, to get a probabilistic distribution of loss. And I sold little tranches of risk. Now, in order to do that, I had to fly to London. I flew to Bermuda. I flew to New York. I set up, 30 to 50 meetings, and I got one person to sign up on the deal. I thought it was an incredibly lucrative deal. Like I outlined all the risk, I had a whole presentation, and I got one person to sign up on the deal. And a year went by. Next year comes up, and I got 4 people to sign up on the deal. I did the same thing, did a huge marketing push, flew to London, flew to Bermuda, flew to New York. And then because I had somebody on the prior deal and that word kind of spread a little bit, they got a little bit more comfortable with the methodology. I kept pounding the table. And I was the only person in the market that was running this wildfire liability market for the entire utility industry in all of the United States. It was me. Like I was the only person. And that market takes time. As a risk market that I had to explain what the risk is. I had to walk through my methodology. I had to convince somebody to not do Florida hurricane risk and participate on wildfire liability risk in New Mexico. And that was it was a campaign. It was a crusade that I had to go on in order to do that and clear the market. So very similar type thing is happening here, right? You've got these new instruments that have never existed with Bitcoin backed exposure. And they're really unique, and the world hasn't seen anything like these before. And they have to talk. They have to talk to people. They have to communicate to people, just like we're doing, right? Like Dan and I got on the horn on Friday and walked through some of these instruments because they're unique and they're hitting people at different times. Like everybody has this education lag, and I think retail here is getting education much faster than institutions, and they have the ability to consume this information. But this campaign is happening on an institutional level as well. And there's, fixed income money managers, probably the most boring people on the planet, by the way, are just now, they're probably getting these documents across the table and starting to look at them and say, oh, Bitcoin, crumple it up, throw it over their shoulder. And then they, start to dig a little further. And so it will take time for this market to build. And I'm not concerned about that at all, because the performance will result in success, and people will follow the success, in my opinion.
Yeah, and look at the price of Strike and Strike this week. I mean, the reason the price is going up is because someone's buying them. So I think
somebody's buying them.
Someone's buying them. That's all. That's my expert analysis.
And they look super lucrative, right? You compare them to other things in the market, and I've done this on past episodes, but you compare it to like the PG&E preferred stock that's paying 650 basis points, and you're looking at Strike paying 850 basis points. So you get 200 basis points more for likely significantly less risk, and you get a free call option on MicroStrategy. Like it's a no-brainer. It's like, oh my God, this instrument looks so good. But let's think back to the Financial Times video today. People don't even get Bitcoin, right? They don't even grasp Bitcoin. How can they?
They're long teeth.
Yeah, they're long teeth, long scarce teeth. So how can you grasp a preferred stock instrument if you don't even get Bitcoin, you don't even understand collateralization, you don't understand financial strength, you don't know how to read a balance sheet? And all of the education that we've built so far across these 26 episodes, everybody that's been here hanging out with us, thank you. But this is education and time that the rest of the market isn't consuming, and they're significantly far behind. And there's a huge moat between what some of the retail investors know compared to these institutions at the moment.
It's interesting. Yeah. Anyone with a large pool of capital is looking, how can I get 10% with no volatility? Right. And I just watched the Jordi Visser episode today, and it was like, since the peak or since 2021, the S&P has returned 6% annually. And there's a lot of people who have kind of a bearish on stocks outlook because of falling multiples on large cap tech stocks. And so I think what's kind of interesting is like, well, this is kind of the answer to a lot of people's problems. If you just want your 10% low volatility return that, you know, in theory you were getting in the S&P, well, Strife is your friend, right? And similarly, if you want a Bitcoin correlated return with a 9% dividend yield as of right now, or 10% almost dividend yield as of right now, Strike is your your preferred stock of choice. And then couple that with the different hedging strategies you can use to hedge out your risk, your counterparty MSTR risk. I mean, it's a pretty cool product, and I don't see why more people aren't like tumbling over each other to figure out what these are. When we see a 10% coupon, it's like, okay, what is that thing? Can I buy it? That's what.
Yeah. 10% coupon is huge.
Massive.
Right? I mean, if you had $1 million, let's, I don't know, I'm not 70, but if you had $1 million and you're 70, you could just park it in Strife and get paid $110,000 a year for the rest of your life.
Good to go.
You're good. You're good to go. Perpetual, forever. As long as you think that strategy can manage the capital on their balance sheet appropriately, they can manage their leverage ratio. They continue to have interest in Bitcoin, and Bitcoin just Bitcoins.
Yeah. And I don't see why you wouldn't add. I think Strike is such a cool addition to a modern portfolio. Like if you're a fund manager or whatever else, and you're looking for that kind of fixed income like payout plus the upside of a Bitcoin related thing. It's like you always said, Jeff, it's like, oh, these convertible notes are a great addition to a insurance company's balance sheet, right? They can issue premium against them, whatever. Strike is a similar thing on like a traditional asset manager portfolio. It's like, oh, it's this random thing over here that's spitting off a 9% coupon. Don't worry about it. And then you've got all that hidden upside. And so the client's like, oh, this is great. I'm getting the payout and I'm getting the upside. Like, and they don't have to know what it is. Not that they would do that, but that's my.
If you're like an independent money manager and you didn't have to fit within the confines of like, I don't know, Merrill or any of these other wealth management companies, these instruments are a no-brainer to add to clients. Not financial advice, but it seems like a no-brainer to add to a portfolio to outperform, even in small amounts, right? Like you don't need to YOLO these instruments. Like you can add them in small amounts, and they will significantly increase the return and reduce the risk of your entire portfolio. Like that efficient frontier conversation is it's a no-brainer when you think of these new instruments.
And what did Saylor say on stage? It was something along the lines of, we designed Strike to have 80 to 90% of the upside of Bitcoin because of the way they designed the MSTR equity to have about 1.5 to 2x the performance of Bitcoin. So if that's the case, then adding Strike to a portfolio as opposed to Bitcoin is a really, really interesting concept because you get the dampened volatility as a result of the coupon payment, which is in itself advantageous to the client. So I mean, I think that's a pretty cool sell. If I was a money manager, I would be hustling that.
With reduced downside. Right?
Reduced, exactly.
Yeah,
because of the coupon payment.
Because of the coupon.
Floor. It's a floor.
It's a price floor, because if the coupon gets too high, then capital flows in because the coupon's so high.
Yeah. And you're looking at the guys who's going to be buying it.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, fascinating instrument. And somebody brought this up here too. The other really interesting takeaway from strategy, and we'll jump into strategy world and True North world after this, but one of the interesting takeaways was they designed those products using AI. And so let's think about this for a second. The reason these instruments are a bit difficult to grasp is, one, they've never existed before, but two, they literally leveraged artificial intelligence, and they iterated and iterated and iterated and went out to market. So they had an original product for Strike. They went out to market. The market said, I can't even model this. This is too confusing. AI just went too unique. And then they came back, simplified it a little bit. AI iterated, went back out to market. And that's what we have today. We have Strike. And so it's the first financial instrument that's created using artificial intelligence, which is absolutely fascinating. And it's
100%.
It just emphasizes how incredible AI is. And we're going to see this acceleration of information. If you're not using AI, you're behind. And these guys are doing it to create instruments that they're using and selling in the market today that haven't existed before. So, yeah.
I also think what people need to remember or realize, depending on when they got into the equity, is that when Strategy started this in August of 2020, it wasn't where it was now, right? We've had a stock split, and we've had a lot of volatility. The options market wasn't where it was in the beginning as where it is now. So if you fast forward another 4 years, 4 or 5 years, take a look at where Strike and Strife can be. I think people are really underestimating just how large it can get. And if coming back to what we were talking about, strategy being an economy at True North World, Strife for me is an ideal bear market hold. That's one of the ways I'm looking at it. I'm also looking at it as an easy way to port over some strategy gains. So if we rip up to like $1,000 a share, I'll consider taking some off the top, but only to roll it into Strike. And there's just so many different ways you can play it, and I think people are really underestimating how large it can get, and they're just focusing on why isn't it large right now. Like I've seen all through Twitter, people are saying it's clear that Strike and Strife aren't working. They need to try something different. I'm just like, it's been like 5 seconds. Like
Yeah.
they just give it a second. It's gonna scale, and once it starts scaling, and they can use the ATM on both more effectively, and then on the common, there's so many ways they can play this thing out, and make it blow up. So
Without
Totally agree.
without
Totally.
dilution, right?
Exactly.
Because it's not like if they set up a Strife ATM, which I think is on the horizon, that's probably in the next couple of weeks, I would assume.
I mean, it makes perfect sense for them to do it. I don't see why not.
If the interest is there and they can raise that capital in the Strife ATM, that's capital that's going to smash buy Bitcoin with zero dilution. That's why we're talking about this so much. That's why Dan and I are fired up on these products. How does mNAV how does Bitcoin per share increase really fast? How do you increase mNAV and sustain mNAV increasing into the future? You get capital in the door without even diluting the shareholders at all. And you increase Bitcoin per share at a significantly faster rate just by designing this new product and going on a campaign and in the market.
Yeah, no, completely. And I think a lot of people were forced to think about the reality of Strike when Josh kind of flamed out and bought Strike or whatever happened the other day. And I love you, Josh. And the point being it forced me to think about what is Bitcoin per share and what does Bitcoin per share mean for preferred equities that are higher in the capital structure. And when you're forced to think about that, you realize how many Strife is different because it's a fixed income product and doesn't have the ability to convert, and you don't get exposure to MSTR. So let's leave that aside for the second. But Strike actually has higher Bitcoin per share than MSTR because of its senior nature in the capital stack and its liquidation preference. And so that's something I've been wrestling with. And it's like, okay, so if Strike technically has higher Bitcoin per share because of the current the way in which it's trading relative to its liquidation preference than MSTR Class A, in theory, it's actually a more valuable product right now, plus the coupon payment. So the fact that Strike isn't trading higher makes no sense to me, because I think right now Strike is like fundamentally mispriced relative to just what people are willing to buy MSTR for.
Yeah, definitely underpriced.
And then once Strike starts trading like a synthetic MSTR, which it will at some point, once we get high enough past the liquidation preference and conversion price, like let's say MSTR is trading at $2,000 a share, Strike will be effectively, because the coupon will be so low, will effectively be a synthetic MSTR, but it's senior to MSTR in the capital structure, and there's no incentive to convert. So at that point, Strike will, in my opinion, I think Strike will trade at a premium to its conversion rate to MSTR when we're far enough above. Strike is going to be like an incredibly valuable equity.
Yeah, it's interesting to think about risk profile of these things too, and what would cause a liquidation or a bankruptcy. And it's kind of hard to conceptualize a situation where there is one. Just thinking about the math, right? Like, I mean, the price of Bitcoin's got to go down drastically, down to 14,000 or 15,000, and stay there for an extended period of time. And that's pretty difficult to conceptualize without some huge, massive, earth-shattering event. I think Saylor said on the Financial Times video is like aliens landing and causing a cyber blackout, or a global EMP, something where you're probably better off having, whiskey and cigarettes and ammunition and guns as your currency as opposed to anything else in those types of scenarios. So it seems a bit binary to me. Like there is no risk or it's 100% loss.
Yeah.
everything's 100% loss, and I don't think it's 100% loss. I think that probability I've effectively like wiped out from my perspective. So it's just so hard to conceptualize what that risk would be.
And
It's
the
a
market's
zero
not
sum
pricing.
trade, is what it is.
Yeah.
What's that, Adrian?
It's a zero sum trade, is what it is. In my mind, it's either going to crash and burn or it's going to explode in the best way possible.
Yeah.
Right. And the market doesn't price it like that. The fact that you can buy, and again, I know we always come back to this. It's like you can buy strike and hedge with deep out of money puts, whatever. But the point there is like the market doesn't price the puts in a way in which the payoff of MSTR is binary. But we're here realizing the payoff of MSTR is quite binary, and that's something you could price with the long tail, the deep out of the money call options far into the future, or you can price in terms of the insurance on the downside, which should be priced differently if the payout is binary. So just cool. It's cool. You can't use the Black-Scholes to price this stuff.
You can't. Dan, it's funny you bring that up, because that comment, while it seems regular that we're talking about this and we've been talking about it for weeks, I'm sure there are a lot of people in the comments that are confused.
Okay.
Right. You can effectively buy puts if you have strike exposure, which gives you the upside. It gives you the premium, or gives you the yield. It gives you upside exposure to MSTR. And if you wanted to buy insurance on the product, if you didn't think Bitcoin was going to be around, you can buy puts down out in the tail to basically give you insurance and hedge that position and still get something like a 6% yield or something like that.
Yeah, wicked high yield
with zero risk. Like you've insured the risk out because you're buying puts so far deep out of the money.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a no-brainer for like if you're a TradFi. If you're one of those TradFi guys, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah, makes sense. All right, well, let's shift gears. With 37 minutes in, let's talk about True North World, Strategy World, and your experiences there. Maybe I'll kick it over to upper left-hand corner to Tim Kotzman and LaDoger to give us your thoughts on Strategy World, True North World. What you thought?
It was amazing. As an audience, this conference within a conference within a conference concept was very incredible. You were so True North World was right beside the merch stand, and then we just bought merch, and then we go see some True North talks. So we came out. I met Andrew Kane, CFO, in a merch shop. We talked about finance, CFO stuff. Went back in, saw CEO Phong Lee speaking there. Came back out. You met some other interesting people in the merch stand. That was amazing. And and this like I think this entire first conference of True North was a huge success. Everyone there was I would say high quality people, because most conferences out there's a lot of like people who are just there, they don't know what they're doing. But at least in True North World, everyone knew what they were doing. Right? A lot of them were high net worth individuals. A lot of them were in the wealth management industry for many years. And they all just they just told me, like, I talked to so many people, they just retired, right? They retired using MSTR, and they're just here. It's a social thing for them, right? Also met a lot of strategy like staff, like employees from Europe actually that came there, and they all approached me, and they talk about how they told me that in the internal training sessions they watch True North videos. so that's just crazy. They just like employees. There's like employees, investors in strategy. It's a bit like the lines are blurred, right? What's the difference between customers and employees and investors, like shareholders? They're all interests are highly aligned, like most other companies. In our case, they're all aligned. And the educational content flow between all of them. So I never seen anything like this before. It was amazing. Good job, guys. Do it more. Looking to see you in February.
Yeah, that's right. That's
Tim?
right.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to repeat myself too much, but I mean, people traveling from far, far away to just come see us and say hi was awesome. Obviously, just just meeting everyone was awesome. And over the last week, the conversations that I've been having and the amount of interest that's growing because of the amount of Bitcoin treasury companies, I know we'll get to that later, that is growing. It's just super cool. I mean, I feel like the best decision that you could have made was to go to the Bitcoin for Corporations, Strategy World, True North World Conference. But that's in the past now. So what's the next best decision? Go to Vegas, and you can support True North World and see us in Vegas. All capital letters, MSTR True North, 30% off your ticket.
Oh yeah.
Okay, I'm done.
Perfect. Yeah, we're going to be in Vegas here in, what is that, a couple of weeks. We'll all be there. We don't have any specific events or anything lined up, but I'm sure we'll, throw out a happy hour or we'll do something amongst all of the scheduling. There's just a ton of stuff going on that week, but we are planning to do an event in Q3 or Q4 potentially. That would be a, intimate, 200 person thing, maybe in middle America, Colorado or Chicago or something like that. And then there will be Strategy World 2026, which will be in February in Vegas as well. So keep that on your radar. That will be on the horizon. I think one of the things you hit on, LaDoger, is Phong came to our True North World, and it was electric, right? I think Tim announced, and we have Phong Lee, and he got up on stage, and the
ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage the CEO of Strategy, Phong Lee, and people standing ovation. They're screaming and yelling and so excited.
It erupted. The crowd erupted. Everybody stood up and was like clapping. It was incredible. I think we've got it on camera, so hopefully we can see that on film here in the future. But anyway, Adrian, over to you.
Oh yeah, so with True North Worlds, the thing for me was I was kind of taken aback by how many people wanted to come up and talk to us and be so grateful and thankful of all the information we've put out. That was something that I found really not only refreshing but rewarding, in the sense that you're seeing a real tangible reaction from people with all the information we've been putting out. And Strategy World itself was great. We had so many different conversations with so many different people. I had so many different conversations with so many different people. It was a very, very electric event from, technically from Sunday night, because we had a lot of people that showed up Sunday night. So technically from Sunday night all the way through to Thursday, it was very electric. And money well spent on travel, time well spent on the effort. It was more like thinking back to where we started this, it was far more electric than I thought it would be, just for us at the beginning. And that electricity kind of carried through all the way through the event. So I'm very, very excited to see what we come up with for Q4. And I'm very excited to see what we come up with for February in Vegas. If this was any indicator, Lord knows what we will come up with now when we can actually plan it out. And we aren't just kind of winging it and going with the seat of our pants there. So I'm pretty pumped for it.
Yeah. So True North, this group was created 7 months ago. We had 45 days to plan the event, and we threw it together. We got sponsors, and people showed up. And I think we had people from about 20 different countries there, which was pretty wild. And one of the biggest themes and takeaways that I got was everybody was just so happy to talk to other people. They didn't feel like an outsider anymore, right? One of the reasons I started talking on Twitter is because I'd go to parties with my wife, and she's like, "Hey Jeff, you can't talk about this stuff anymore. We're losing friends." And so I had to go to Twitter, and I started just saying stuff that was on my mind. And I think a lot of people have a very similar experience. So it was really, people loved just being able to talk to other people that spoke the same language. And people were just so happy, ecstatic to be there, that had been holding MSTR for a long time and just had nobody to talk to about it. And so that was just a really cool thing to see. Maybe over to you, Dan. Anything else?
Yeah, I mean, the way we were received I'm just very grateful of the way we were received. It was an awesome event, and it was because people showed up and were supportive and constructive, and the people we meet are like really high caliber. People look up to us like we're, we know something about anything. But I go into the audience. I go to the audience and like listen to the business titans that listen to us, and I learned so much from them. So I don't know. I just feel very fortunate to have those interactions. And again, it's like that idea that we're all True North. That's kind of It's kind of corny, but the real idea is that
They're
we're
valid.
all, it's valid, right? We're all learning from each other. Like I learned so much from everyone there, and these relationships are invaluable. So super proud to be a part of this group.
Awesome. Grain.
Oh,
You there?
yeah, I'm here. Give me a second. I got to figure out how to turn the camera on because I never do this. Let me figure.
He's gonna do
The
it.
Florence-
I think that-
He's gonna do it.
Grain,
He did
let's go.
it. Grain is a real person. Oh,
First time.
Oh wow.
a real Coke. Oh, amazing.
Not
Real
diet?
good.
Oh shit. Okay.
No
gloves are
diet.
off.
No
The gloves are
diet.
off.
There it is. So, look, I have a whole
Cheers.
list of things to go. Cheers. I have a whole list of things to go through.
Okay.
Block off your calendars, guys.
Yes. Wait,
Okay.
let's go 47 minutes.
Yeah.
Right over there's the helmet. So I have lots of helmets. The white one is retired because it's 10 years old and it's been replaced by the black helmet on that side, but it's still good to use. But anyway, with that said, look, there's a lot of things that happened at this event that was truly awesome that everybody was saying. There's a big difference between going in person, and I met LaDoger for the first time, and it's awesome. And I've seen his posts. The guy's great. And when you talk to somebody and you sit there, it's really heartwarming to talk to people. So I recommend going in person to go someplace and hear the information firsthand. If you go to an event that Saylor's at, and you're persistent, there's a good chance you can meet him, take a picture with him, and ask him a question. That is definitely possible to do that. So I highly recommend going to an event. We're going to be in Las Vegas. Myself, Jeff, Ben, and Richard Byworth. We're going to be on stage on Friday. I forgot the exact
Thursday.
time I posted.
Thursday, 2
Sorry,
p.m.
Thursday, 2 p.m. We'll be on the main stage talking about strategy. I'll get there early on Monday. We'll be there at the Venetian. We'd be happy to talk to everybody, and we're doing as much as we can to connect with our followers. The conference within the conference within the conference within the conference, we had over 120 people sitting in the audience and listening to us for 4 hours straight. It was great. It was really awesome. One of the announcements that I alluded to, but I did not post on X, is that we're filming a documentary. A feature-length documentary that will take footage all the way through from starting there and going all the way through February of next year. And then we will release it for the film festivals and for every awards imaginable. And so that's something that we're working on right now. If you would like to be in the documentary, you have to come to an event and talk to us. Have to sign a release also. But with that, the documentary will be awesome. That's something that I mentioned, but I didn't post about. Podcasts and the stage presentations. There's over 25 podcasts. We're having those professionally edited and getting those out. Log Scale Investments. I'm the CEO of that company. It's a VC company, proprietary trading. And with that, I'm a sponsor of MSTR True North. So you will see the logo. Log Scale Investments is live. It's only one page. With that, I will be a sponsor of this show going forward. So if we get paid, we're getting paid by the sponsors that were there at that event. Somebody's got to pay for the editing and the film crews to do this. This is not free. Let's see. I'll also be at Bitcoin Prague. People are going to be in Prague. I've never been to Prague, so if you're there, I'll get there. Tim, I believe you'll be in Prague, correct? LaDoger, you going to be in? You got to love those emojis. LaDoger, you going to be in Prague?
I'll be in Vegas. Prague haven't planned yet.
Okay, that's at the end of June. You could still get in. You could still get there.
Possible.
So, okay, with that, and then tomorrow, the Swan event. Ben, are you going to be there tomorrow?
I'm not. No, I'm staying back in Michigan. I got a pretty packed calendar here this week, so I'm not making it out to California this time.
Okay, bummer with that, but I will stop by there, and that's in Palo Alto, California. The Swan event, Ben could post the link to that if there's still availability to go there. I'll be there for maybe a half an hour or 45 minutes. I've got to bolt out. But look, now you can see my real face. I hope I can meet you people in person.
There's Grain. Got him. Great reveal.
That's all I have
Grain.
to cover.
Yeah, great reveal. Fantastic. Yeah. There's going to be a feature film documentary, and I think there's a high likelihood that we saw this happen with Dumb Money and the GameStop craze, but that documentary came out like 18 months later, right? And this would be interesting timing if we're able to get something out kind of near the end of the year or early next year. It'd be pretty cool to have almost real time knowing what was going on.
Yeah, I want to say, yeah. So on the documentary, it's behind the scenes. It's what we're talking to each other. There is some swearing in it. It's a documentary, but
I swear a lot. So yeah.
So there's that, and you can see behind this, and I just want to say thank you to Jeff and to Ben and for the whole MSTR True North team getting this set up in a very short period of time, getting strategy to trust us to put on a professional event in a very short period of time. I think one of the takeaways, besides people coming wanting to meet with us, it's like you did this all in whatever 45 days. Yeah, we did. And I just want to say something. One of the guys came up to me at the party. He's like, I was able to order a $40 scotch, and I'm like, I hope you didn't order.
Shout out to the guy from Finland who broke our bar tab.
yeah. So we blew out the bar tab, but that's all good. I want everybody to have a good time and have fun. And why did we have to charge for the event? To pay the bar tab. And by the way, the food was pretty good. We had sliders and Wagyu beef jerky. And anyway, we want these events to be fun. If you can come out and go to them, I think you'll get a completely different view of what's going on if you come in person. And I don't know how else I could say that, but once you come in person, and I said this, it'll get posted. When you go to the event there, you're now normal, because everybody wants to talk about this nonstop. When you feel
normal.
Right. The roughest part of the whole conference is when you know that you're going to the airport and you're like, you're like,
nobody knows who you are anymore, and you're like,
right,
damn, I'm back in the real world.
Do you know who I am?
Right. And they're like, and people look at me like, why is the 8 sideways on your hat?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean, great feedback, Grain. I mean, shout out to Strategy. They took a risk in putting us on stage, right? They put us on stage. They gave us a day. They gave us space, and I think we rose to the challenge and understood the assignment, right? This is a very professional event. We all had very professional backgrounds, and we were able to bring a lot of energy. One thing that was very clear as well is that the folks that were there for Bitcoin were the electricity for the entire event. There was a software side of things, but they weren't as fired up and jacked as everybody else was walking in the hallway. So a lot of orange ties, a lot of orange swag. They definitely looked like $100 billion company. The marketing was incredible. They had the merch station was huge. They had all of the stuff plastered all over the walls and windows. It was like, oh wow, they went over and above for this. It kind of felt like an early Apple like event or something like that. That was just like totally electric. They went over the top.
By the way, the Air Jordan, what do they call it? The Air Jordans?
Dunks. Nike Dunks.
Right. And then Saylor was signing them. And then people are like, they got it in a box and like, oh, I can't wear it because Saylor signed it. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, they didn't have them in a size 12. I was kind of pissed about that. But besides, those sneakers were awesome.
Saylor was laughing. He's like, I'm signing shoes now.
Yeah, it was so surreal to see this, that signing the shoes, and it was just really, really crazy. And I don't know, it was just an amazing event.
Yeah. Over to you, Ben.
Yeah, I mean, this whole event was kind of mind-blowing for me. I mean, no matter how long we do this, and no matter how many people you meet, it's still weird when you're in person at these events and there's people coming up to you wanting to talk to you. And, so many people were, they just kept saying things like, I can't believe you guys will just stop and talk to us. And just hearing that, really weirds me out, because we are just truly normal guys that are just really interested in the stock. And it's so cool to meet all the people that come in. I mean, this is the one place where we're incredibly normal, is when we're at these types of events. And, for other people that come in, so my wife came down to this one, and a lot of you guys will know that my wife's the one that told me to, have fun with my internet friends. And it blew her mind completely what was going on there. I mean, the energy around there, all the people talking about Bitcoin and MicroStrategy and coming up to her and talking about how they love the group and they love the show we put on, and people talking about our conference. And, before I left, she was like, well, are you going to have to, talk at your conference and like give a presentation? I'm like, yeah, we got like 5 hours that we got to fill. Like this is a real event. So it was really awesome to see Strategy bring us in the way they did and then support us throughout the entire event. And, it was a risk for them because, and I even said it on stage, I had to ask whose idea was it to take the group that talks at midnight on Wednesday every week and put them on your main stage and give them a room for a conference and, help them get everything set up and going. It was just incredible. So you are really seeing a transformation in the way that companies are going to interact with their retail investors. And they're finding out that particularly for these types of conferences, those retail investors bring an entirely different kind of energy to it. And you could see it even in just the general gathering areas, where it was all the people that came in early on Monday. And Monday for the conference, for the general conference, was kind of a slow day. There really wasn't a whole lot going on in terms of what Strategy was doing. So a lot of the people that were there on Monday were there for our conference. And everyone was hanging out really late in the bars, just having a great time, talking to each other, having a blast. I mean, I was whooped after that. This was one of the first conferences where I started, feeling my age here. I don't know that I'm going to qualify for kid analyst for too much longer because I was smoked, man. But it was so awesome to meet so many people, and you recognize the names immediately. And for a lot of them, you recognize the faces because they've been interacting with us for so long that when you come out to these conferences, particularly the ones where there's less people, and you can have those opportunities to interact pretty regularly in casual settings, just like at the hotel bars every single night after the conference was done. It was just such a cool event to be a part of. So I'm really glad that we got to do that. I'm looking forward to whatever the other events are. I mean, for everyone who doesn't think that these things take a lot of work, thank goodness we've got an amazing behind the scenes team here that, some of you have seen a few times, but they all went on stage and talked to everyone. So everyone got to meet the people that are really making all this stuff happen behind the scenes. Cause it wasn't people like me making this happen for sure.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, people were working hard, Grain was working his tail off. Trollstein was working his tail off. Colleen was working her tail off. J64 was working his tail. I mean, everyone was working hard, even when we got there, getting everything set up, getting the room ready for everyone to come, working with all the merchandise that, the sponsors brought to give away to the people in the audience. It was just such a cool event to be a part of. And it blows my mind every day that we've made the progress that we've made here and that there's so many people that want to interact and engage about a single equity. But it's the coolest thing in the world that we get to be a part of this.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. This is the digital transformation of investor relations. And somebody put in it, Phong coming by the bar at 1:30 a.m. to take pics and chat with us was crazy. That's Trollstein. And I think they were like ripping shots beforehand or something too, which is so funny.
So we got real quick, we got in Sunday night and we had this impromptu and I just said to people, look, I got to go to sleep. We're putting on an event tomorrow morning. We got to get everything up and going. They're like, really? I'm like, yeah, I just got here and it's 1 o'clock in the morning and you could stay up as late as you want, but I got to go. So I think when you come to these events, nobody wants to leave or go to sleep because you could talk. Everybody has their own perspectives. Everybody knows about the subject in and out. And then they go there and there's always a fresh person to talk to. Oh, that's such and such. Oh, and then they tell you who they are. And you're like, oh, you're this person on X. And it's just really awesome to go talk to them. And then eventually, you got to go to sleep. But yeah, I think if you come to the event, you'll have a much different takeaway.
Yeah, absolutely. One other thing, go watch the content too. I mean, the content was also fantastic from Strategy World. One of my biggest takeaways was Phong is incredibly impressive. And I think incredibly underappreciated in the entire crew. And people that I say key man risk haven't done the research on Phong. They haven't watched him talk. They haven't watched any of his conversations. Incredibly impressive guy. And he was previously the CFO and is now the CEO. And so if you think about, running a really strong financial company, having a CFO background is incredibly helpful, right? So when I think about, the future of strategy. I think they're in very good hands with Phong. He's incredibly impressive. He also had this session. It was one of his keynotes. I think it was on one of the days of the Bitcoin for Corporations panel, where he walked through some of the KPIs, talking about BTC income, BTC gain, and walked through those specific KPIs and had different slides and spent time on them. And that presentation is literally a master's in science of finance of Bitcoin, right? This is a master's level class, effectively given in an hour by Phong at a Bitcoin for Corporations for education of how this industry is evolving and how it's going to move into the future. So go watch it. It's literally free, and it's on the internet, and it's available. And that is where this industry is evolving and going towards. So if you want to stay ahead of the curve and you want to feel a little bit more comfortable about key man risk, go check that out.
I don't think Fong's flying as far under the radar as people think anymore. I mean, when he came in and got up on stage, he got kind of a Saylor level standing ovation, right? The retail community that's really engaged with this equity, and a lot of this credit probably goes to Tim when they did that interview. I think that was such an eye-opening moment for everybody to figure out that this entire team is sharp. And that's part of being at these conferences and being able to just stop and talk to these guys in the halls, because they're very generous, giving everyone their time and answering any questions. And you really quickly realize that, everyone from the executives down to the entire capital markets team is just absolutely incredible. And you find out that there's a much bigger team that's steering the ship here beyond just Saylor and the AI tools, which I thought was amazing. that was how they were creating all these products. That was just, it tells you that if you're not already using AI in your life or for whatever your job is, that you probably should start, because that's the way that they're making all of this happen. And it really helps to ignite that creativity. But the fact that that team was even open to doing that and pushing through all the iterations before they even go to the lawyers to hear their objections and then, push through them was incredible. They've got such a great team, and they've got a team of really young people on the capital markets team that are doing so much of the behind the scenes work that none of us are ever going to see, all the way up to guys like Phong, who, if he was out there and he was the person out in front and Saylor wasn't a part of the equation here, people would absolutely be cheering for Phong, because he's super personable. He absolutely knows what he's talking about. And when he gets up in front of a crowd and gets to run through this stuff, the guy's electric. So yeah, I think people did underestimate him for a little bit, but I think very quickly that's fading to the side. And my hunch is you're going to start getting kind of that 1-2 combination of Saylor and Phong more often than we have in the past.
Don't toot his horn too much. You're going to be teamed, independent or marketing arm.
Yeah. When do our paychecks come in, guys? Have you guys gotten them? I don't remember how that works.
Long
There's no paychecks for everyone listening. No paychecks.
Mine didn't hit this week.
We've made $0 from this. We might be negative. I'm not sure, but
we're gonna start our Bitcoin treasury maybe next week. So over to LaDoger.
Yeah, I just want to add on top of that, right? So Phong is now on the radar now, and I think Shirish and Chaitanya, like CJ, they are also gonna be big. Like they are rising stars. They're doing a lot of the things behind the scenes. CJ actually just became a full-time employee. Like he's not an intern anymore. So he just graduated from Harvard MBA, and he's now full-time doing strategy stuff, doing the math and Excel, PowerPoint, all that. And I think he's popular. People like him, and he's the young face of strategy. So that's going to be incredibly bullish.
Tell us about your experience at the office.
Oh, yeah. So after the conference, I just went to Washington D.C. and visited Strategy's headquarters. It's actually in Tysons. That's like a few stops away from like Washington D.C. train station. It's in Virginia, but it's just across the river. And so I visited the office 3 times, like throughout 3 days. Just met a bunch of their employees there. Very bullish. A lot of their employees actually, it's very bullish. I talked to their employees.
Employees are bullish. Yeah,
they're bullish. A lot of the employees actually speak Mandarin because they're shipped all the way from China. Right, they just import all the math geniuses from China, some from India. Actually, most people I spoke to there were either Asian or Indians. That's very interesting. I mean, it's normal in tech, I guess. Also met a bunch of people in a strategy hub. So as they just started strategy hub, and so it's just right now as a co-working space. But some of them are doing pretty interesting stuff, like doing sustainable mining, meaning using mining rigs and like sheeps and chickens, like do a bio. I don't know how to call it, but there's some innovative stuff going on there. More and more people are joining Strategy Hub, and I think it will evolve into something like a startup incubator, like a Y Combinator for Bitcoin startups. That's incredibly bullish. And so yes, and the building is huge, so there's a lot of room for everyone. So I think it will just become an ecosystem, and more and more people will join. And yeah, it also has some chats with the executive team. Also did an interview with Phong Li, which is coming out soon. So that is also very incredibly bullish. We talked about Phong Li's personal life, right? So Tim is doing more professional content, and we're the entertainment people, so we're doing entertainment stuff. So if you guys like entertainment content, that's us.
Yeah.
And so Strategy HQ, walking distance from the Tyson train station in DC, amazing place. That's what I have for now.
Yeah, we'll probably do a live True North from there here soon, which would be fun.
You should get a True North office within the Strategy HQ.
That might be
Let's
crossing the line.
go.
That might be crossing the line. That might not go over well. Be careful with that. The other thing that people don't know is LaDoger runs Digital Saylor, and Digital Saylor is going to be a part of True North here in the near future, and you should be able to interact with him. I mean, he won't be like on this on the screen, but he will be part of our True North crew, and we'll have.
You're not supposed to announce that here.
All right.
Yes,
All
but,
right. Well, anybody that's here still, they'll know. But
Nobody's listening. It's okay.
yeah, we're late. We're an hour and 7 in. Come on. Okay. Anybody else have anything else to add before we shift topic?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, a quick thing. So Jeff and I, when we went to go talk to Saylor, and this was all filmed, this is the difference between going in person and what you see on when Saylor does a presentation and asks questions. When we were standing next to him, it is known fact that I'm a car guy with the helmets, model cars up top. I said to him, "Why did you pick the word torque, BTC Torque?" And he said, "Oh, because legal would not allow the word leverage." I'm like, "Really?" He goes, "Oh yeah, we argued over this for 6 weeks." And he said this in a room this is not like a secret. He said this in a room, Jeff, you remember we were talking in front of, I don't know, 300 people in the room as we're being filmed at the time. And I was like, "Really, the word leverage?" He goes, "Oh yeah, the lawyers didn't like the word leverage. So that's why I picked torque." And then he said to me, he goes, and we have all these different financial products, obviously the common stock, the preferreds, the converts, and each convert has a different expiration. He goes, "Those are like gears in a transmission." I'm like, yes. That's something that I understand. And I didn't do that. I just go, "Yeah, Michael, I agree with you." And so, but inside, I'm like, "Yeah, of course." It's like gears,
as one would expect.
One would expect. When you're driving down the road, you got to pass the car, you hit the paddles, or you downshifted a few gears and you blast past. I'm not giving any driving advice. Okay? I'm just saying.
Not driving advice.
Not driving advice. Don't take it. But with that said, when he said that, I was like, awesome. And you would never hear that. That question would never come up on a panel. And that's some things that you hear when you go there and you talk to him directly. If you ask Saylor a really good question, you'll probably get a really good answer. If you don't ask him a good question, he might
be prepared. Just know the guy is probably one of the smartest guys on the planet, and he's just pounding AI all day, right? He's just in there, like anything he's thinking about, boom, let's go into AI, and it's like faster, and it's like, okay, if you think you're, it's he's accelerating. His intelligence is just like up and to the right, accelerating higher.
So he said this, and then we'll go to the next topic. What he said was in the keynote when he was talking about it, that he used AI to create the perpetuals, right? Strike and strife. And what he did was he hits deep research mode. He talks about this. He gets all of the relevant SEC filings, all the relevant case law, whatever is necessary to do. And then he copies and pastes it directly in the email, sends it to his lawyers and say, here's all the information, go work on it. So he cuts off 3
sends the
months
chat.
of people like, what
Yeah.
are we going to do? What are we going to do? He's like, no, I already asked all the questions to AI. You now need to go execute on it. And when you think about it, that always has to come from the top. That cannot come from a lower level person. But if that person says, hey, I've done all this research, now your value add is you've got to be better than AI to go figure out how to do the filings, right? So if those lawyers are smart, they would go use AI to be like, oh crap, he sent this stuff. Let's use AI to see what to do. He didn't talk about that part. I'm just saying that when your CEO gives you all the case law, all the filings, telling you what he wants to roll out, and he sends and pops it into a text message with the prompts in AI, I think that changes the dynamics of how something works in a corporate environment.
You skip years. You skip literal years of work. And it happens in like 10 minutes, you know?
Can you imagine being a lawyer and receiving an email that's it's kind of like the long
Hey, I did all the
warning
research for you. Like,
from
here,
Ben,
look at
from
it.
Ben, long post warning. Everybody's like reading through it. They're like, oh, you need a TLDR on the top. Can you imagine getting that? And the guy already knew all the prompts, and then you have to go into a meeting with him 3 days later. I don't want to be a lawyer working for him.
Yeah.
Well, the nice thing is AI removed the barrier to creativity for people, right? It took away that fear of asking the dumb question because you can continue to prompt your way through it. And I think that's what you're starting to see is that unlock in human creativity, because now you've got a tool where you can work through all the initial dumb questions and figure out what the actual constraints are and get the research done in real time. So by the time that you have an idea baked that you want to bring and propose to somebody, you've already gone through all of that legwork. So you know that it's feasible by the time you get to that point. And I think that's something that everyone needs to take away. I've been trying to get a lot better about it because it's just such an accelerator for any of these intellectual style endeavors, right? It's great even for equity research. You can prompt it all the time. If you're hearing things on streams that you don't understand, just go ask the questions and you'll get really good information. And it just shows that strategy is really pushing the envelope on that because they not only started using it as a part of their business, they started creating securities out of it, which is just such a wild thing to do, but it's so on brand for this group. So you're going to have to get to the point where you embrace that AI and it gives you that confidence and that comfort to really get through that initial learning curve where you're no longer scared to discuss the idea because you think you don't understand it as well as somebody else. By the time you're done, you might understand it as well as anybody that's ever going to be in the room with you. So try to use it and try to get creative with it because I think that's what's really going to push the future forward and it's going to be amazing.
I want to make a quick point about that. Dan and I have been working a lot, and Trollstein have been working a lot on options. So I've been running all these option scenarios through it. And I kept on saying, I said, I named different strategies. Is it this strategy? Is it this strategy? And it kept on saying, no. And I'm like, and then I just thought, oh, why don't I just ask ChatGPT, what is it that I'm doing? And I write, what is it that I'm doing? And it writes back, oh, you're doing this. Would you like an overview and detailed analysis? I'm like, yes. And so I thought that I was right. It gives a great answer.
Yeah. The world's moving super fast. Super fast. Okay. All right, we got to shift gears. We're hour 13 in. Let's go. Let's talk S&P 500 because I did a couple of posts on this and I'm going to shift gears, throw this on the screen here, and we're going to talk about this. So I made a couple of posts. The potential S&P 500 passive flows to MSTR are likely to surpass the scale of the existing ATM in place, which is about $20 billion remaining. S&P 500 in scale is 10 times larger than the QQQ. The relative inclusion ranking may result in about 4 times the scale of QQQ inclusion in 2024. So I did a little bit of math, and I wanted to show this in a dynamic format so people can see what's going on here. So the amount of capital that can, maybe I'll make it a little bit bigger. Oh, shoot. There we go. Okay, so the amount of capital that's following the S&P 500 is estimated to be about 5 trillion. That number is probably light. Ben's going to hop off. Ben, good to see you. We'll catch you later. So the amount of capital following the S&P 500 is estimated to be about $5 trillion. That is probably a little bit light because there are funds that follow effectively what the S&P 500 does, but they don't report it. These are, banks and nations, et cetera. And there's about $500 billion of capital following QQQ. So when strategy was added to QQQ, it was estimated that they were added about a 0.35% allocation weight. They were added around 50th ranking from QQQ. With that ranking of about 0.35%, that results in a $1.75 billion capital flow, passive flow for any fund that's following QQQ. They need to buy strategy in about $1.7 billion worth. During that time period, so from 11/11 to 12/16, strategy raised $17 billion of capital, and they purchased some ungodly amount of Bitcoin. It was like damn near, I think it was nearly 200,000 Bitcoin or something like that. Huge number. So the multiple on that capital raised relative to the capital that came in the door was around 10x. Basically, the price of the stock rose, and they were able to capture that multiple flowing through. So if you were to take that same concept here, right? If they're getting added to the S&P 500, the S&P 500 is about 10 times larger than QQQ, and ranked about 80th out of 500 right now, would result in around 0.25, 25 basis point allocation. That 25 basis point allocation would result in $12.5 billion of passive flow that's coming in the door to follow strategy. If you were to take a same multiple on capital, you're looking at a market cap change of around $125 billion just from that capital that's coming in the door. Now, when you consider they've got $20 billion of ATM left, one of the reasons that they've got $20 billion of ATM left. We saw strategy was able to raise a ton of money really quickly because there was significant front running of the QQQ index. And I think something similar could happen here with the S&P 500. Once they announce positive earnings for the first time in, 4 years or 5 years, and it's some enormous blowout figure, that would instantly qualify them for the S&P 500. It would be the first time that they're technically qualified for it because of the change in accounting rules, FASB fair value accounting, et cetera. In my opinion, this is the biggest story of 2025. MSTR getting included in the S&P 500 is the biggest story of 2025. It's going to be incredibly controversial. When they do have a quarter with positive earnings, the whole market is going to be fighting about what is $1 of earnings worth, right? Is $1 of earnings worth the same $1 of earnings from Apple, right? How does Bitcoin valued relative to these other things? And when you start taking into consideration that strategy is making, if they post a $12 billion gain, that's around $8 million gain per employee, compared to, I think Apple's somewhere around $800,000 net income gain per employee, something along the lines of that. So if this holds true with a 25 basis point allocation, there's a significant amount of capital that needs to come in the door here. And I don't think that ATM is even big enough to capitalize on all of it. And so that would result in potential significant common stock appreciation on top of a massive potential ATM capitalization of the passive flows that are coming in the door. And this is just with an allocation of 25 basis points. As I've put down here, you can see that's around ranked 80th. If the market cap goes from here, let's say 115 to about $200 billion, you're looking at a 40 basis point allocation. And the numbers start to get really wonky. About $20 billion of capital that's got to come in the door and buy strategy stock, which could push the market cap multiple. If you have a 10x multiple, it could push it up about $200 billion. And obviously this gets wonkier as you get higher up the ladder here. So why this is important is this, as the market cap rises, everything on this is reflexive. I think what did Saylor say in this Financial Times interview? It's like a quadratic reflexive financial flywheel. And that's what this is, right? I'm showing it to you right now. As the market cap rises, the relative market cap and allocation in all of these other passive index funds is rising exponentially. You can see it here, right? Like this isn't a linear curve going from 20 to 55 to 2.88 to 3.99. This is an exponential curve. Like as companies get larger in these indices, because they're market cap weighted, the relative passive funds that are allocated to that stock increase drastically. So don't get caught getting popcorn while the movie starts, right? This is a once in a lifetime event, right? The strategy is not going to fall out of the S&P 500. They get added to the S&P 500 one time. I've been in this trade since 2022 for this event, which I think may occur within the next 6 months. And to be very clear, strategy actually getting included isn't the pinnacle here. It's strategy qualifying, right? Everybody this is a huge takeaway. Everybody is front running everybody all the time. The market largely doesn't understand strategy right now. And if there is a situation where they have earnings that qualifies them for the S&P 500, front running will then begin. And we've seen that with other stocks in past history. You can go back, you can look at Tesla in 2020. Tesla started getting front run in the S&P 500 as soon as they had 4 quarters of positive, even 3 quarters of positive earnings in a row, recognizing that the 4th quarter was likely going to be positive, which would qualify them for the index. So you could go look at Tesla market cap. It went on just a meteoric rise from around 150 billion to 700 billion in like 6 months, something like that. And that was a result of the inclusion in the S&P 500. They were excluded the first go around, but the market knew that there was no way they can exclude them for another quarter. So the market just kept pumping it higher. And that was a situation where Tesla ended up hitting, I don't know, a price per share of around $4,000 split adjusted. And it was a huge ordeal. Like that, all eyes were on it. And this is a record event for Tesla. I think Tesla was included in the S&P 500 somewhere around a $300 billion market cap, which is a record high, $300 to $600 billion market cap, which is a record high of a company ever getting included in the S&P 500. We have a similar scenario playing out here because strategy was already included in QQQ and passive flows have pushed it higher and higher. There's potential that they get included at a very high valuation, which can just thrust them up further into the leaderboard. If they're able to capitalize on that new capital coming in the door via ATM as well, that significantly increases the credit rating of all of the debt instruments, the preferred stock that they're providing, which should bring even more capital in the door to buy those preferred instruments because they're going to be significantly delevered as that continues to as the market cap continues to rise.
Can I make a quick comment?
Go ahead. I need to breathe.
Yeah. So look, everything you said, love it. Sounds great. One of the persons made a comment, MCS Cavs, Mrs. Cavs made the comment on coin. So I looked up Coinbase was added to the S&P 500. The first day that they're in, it gapped up and it was up 23.97%. Then the day after, another 2.5%. So it's up a solid 25% in 2 days. The reason why this is not financial advice, you're gonna tend to hear different narratives, and each individual investor has to make their own narratives. What are the two narratives? There's one narrative is buy the rumor, sell the facts. So buy the rumor. So Coinbase, it did not appear, if you look at the Coinbase chart, that there was a lot of front running. The stock had rebounded and then it shot all the way up when that happened, and it did not seem to be front run. On the flip side, you'll hear people say, well, buy the rumor, sell the news. And what happened there is it continued to go up. So it was not front run, and then it continues to go up. So you're going to hear these competing narratives. I can't predict the future. This is why this is not financial advice. And so from that perspective, everyone has to make their own decision. There's a couple of things going on in the threads. We're getting asked lots of questions about upstarts and new companies. Strategy started their journey August of 2020. It's coming up on a half decade. This August, it has a 5-year track record. And so why it has the liquidity, and we're going to get to the FT, the Financial Times thing, or we're done with that. So maybe it's a good segue into that. If you got Financial Times with 1 million people reading this and they don't understand what they're talking about, even after they've been doing this, he's been doing this for 5 years. And Jeff and I talked on the phone about this previously. It's like these people are in mass bewilderment. I don't know how people can take them seriously. And the takeaway for this is that this Coinbase did this. And I think that's a tacit approval that crypto, in my sense, because their Coinbase is crypto, that is a tacit approval that it can be in the S&P 500. So, and Tesla's in the S&P 500, and it does hold Bitcoin. So I don't think that there's any reason why it can't happen. Do we know if it's going to happen? No. Just because it qualifies for the S&P 500 doesn't mean it gets in, because that was something that happened. We're talking about that all in Q1. Just because it qualifies, that means it automatically gets in? No.
No. One thing to keep in mind, Strategy was previously in the S&P 600. So this is one of the reasons that mNAV was actually really high in 2020, 2021. I've done a forensic deep dive on this. And I think the S&P 600 made up something like 6 to 10% of Strategy stock in 2020, 2021, something like that, which is the reason there wasn't why Strategy didn't have the double peak, which a lot of people have been concerned about. So there is that history. And because Strategy has been a company since, I don't know, 1998 or something like that, the company's been around for a really long time. They've been in the small market cap index, and assuming they can wrap their heads around the Bitcoin component, it's a no-brainer. I think, again, I've said this multiple times. The S&P 500 needs Strategy. Strategy doesn't need the S&P 500. And the reason for this is if the market cap continues to rise because of the Bitcoin held on balance sheet, you know who's going to be calling the committee to tell them to put Strategy in the S&P 500? Larry Fink, head of BlackRock, head of Fidelity. All of these companies that manage S&P 500 index funds are going to be yelling at the committee, you need to add Strategy to the S&P 500. I'm missing out on billions and billions of dollars of fees because you guys can't get your heads around this thing. And so the incentives are all aligned. And, worst case scenario, they don't get added. It doesn't matter because they're already added in QQQ and all these other passive index funds. And as the price of Bitcoin continues to rise, the reflexivity just continues. It compounds and compounds and gets higher and higher.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, Jeff, about the incentives here. And it's easy to be kind of doom and gloom, like, oh, everyone hates Bitcoin. Yeah, there's a certain contingent of traditional finance people that hate Bitcoin. But the large majority of people making fees off these products have aligned themselves with Bitcoin and Strategy. I mean, Cantor, it's their single largest equity holding. So I think there is a large lobby for SPY inclusion. And hopefully we'll see that. And someone mentioned, well, what are the dates for inclusion? Well, right now, the soonest they could be included is September 20th. That's the date on which they would be included if earnings are positive and wipe out the prior 3 quarters upon Q2 earnings. Or no, it's that Q3? No, Q2 earnings. And then following that, I think it's the 3rd Friday in December would be the next date for inclusion if they don't get included this time around.
Ring, ring. Hello, this is Howard Lutnick, Secretary of Commerce. You need to add Strategy to the S&P 500, right? Like, the incentives are aligned across the board. But so, again, the dates. Like, thanks for sharing the dates, Dan. Honestly, nobody cares about the dates because the date is when they're qualified. Yeah. When they're qualified, right? Everybody knows all information. You got to assume everybody knows all information. So if everybody knows all information, the front running happens when they get qualified. And right now, I think everybody that's following this closely knows that they qualify, right? But from an accounting perspective, they actually haven't ever officially qualified. So I think there's confusion on that front.
My bet is that the front running happens as we get closer. It's like a function of Bitcoin being above the $97,000 threshold.
June 30th. Yeah.
And the time getting closer. It's like a call option, right? Like as the time starts to decay, the price either, moves very rapidly in either direction. So as we get closer to that June 30th date, I think the amount of front running will either increase or back off based on where Bitcoin's at. If Bitcoin's at 120 in the next month or so, and I think the front running will be like full steam on ahead.
Yeah.
But if we're at 85, I think there won't be any front running. So I think people are just going to lay on the gas and lay off the gas very aggressively as they try to figure out whether we're going to qualify this quarter or not.
So let me make a quick point.
Yeah.
Two things. First thing is the way that you could tell it's me and not a simulation is if they can, if you're talking to somebody who says they're green and they can't pull out a Bell BR1 race helmet for cars, then it's not me. Okay, so that's the most important. This is my authenticator. So that's the important thing. Okay, take off the shelf. The other thing is, I want to talk about investing for a second, and this is how I would take apart.
Are you going to shift gears? Because I want to talk about. Okay.
No, I'm talking about S&P 500. It'll take 1 minute. Hit the timer.
Go
1
ahead.
minute.
You're on.
Okay. If I talk to any financial person, I say, cool, S&P 500, Mag 7 makes up 30.5% of the index. That means the other 493 are zombie dead companies. I just said ChatGPT. If it's off by 1 or 2%, it doesn't matter. So if the S&P 500 is totally basically run by the Mag 7, why would I invest in the rest? Stop right there. That's it. I would say to him, and then whoever talks first loses. I would just shut up, say it to an investor.
Yeah.
Why would I invest in anything except for the Mag 7?
Right.
And they're like, you need to be, so wait, I need to diversify. That means I need to sell the winners to buy the losers. And they always look at me like, well, grain, the stock market could go down. And I'm like, oh, Jesus. Was that under a minute?
You're under a minute.
Cool.
Yeah.
What's the next topic?
I mean, on a very similar vein is passive flows, right? Like, let's think about this. Why does front running happen? Front running happens is because everybody in the market knows what's going on. If you're an active manager and and you also have a passive fund, you can go buy all the equities that that need to go into the passive fund. You can front run it, and you can sell those assets to your passive index. And so in your active fund, where you get paid extra basis points, you can have higher returns, so you can go boost your future returns. And on your passive fund, it just follows the S&P 500, which everybody that got front run. So everybody that's investing in the S&P 500 is getting front run by everybody that's smarter than them in the entire market and is paying attention to all this stuff. So I recognize this back to myself in like 2019. I'm like, oh my God, I'm never investing in this stuff ever again. Like I need to figure this thing out. And so that's the dynamic of front running and what's happening in the market is that everybody knows that the passive money is coming in the door. And the passive money is coming in the door whether you like it or not. So you can always make a decision before them.
Hey, 30 seconds. Back in the old days, after the great financial crisis, what happened was the bond funds were doing terrible. So these were bond funds. For some reason, they bought Apple stock. You're like, what does Apple stock have to do with a bond fund? The returns were so bad on the bonds that they put Apple in it, but no fund manager would ever get on a call with any financial reporter to say why they did this, because that's how bad it was. And Apple came out with a product called an iPhone, and they needed it to juice the returns. And so old people like me remember when this stuff happens, and that's how bad stuff is. So again, the Mag 7 takes 2 seconds to fact check this. If you can't use facts to talk to a financial advisor or somebody else in a cocktail party inside of 1 minute, then you haven't refined your pitch. What?
That's it. That's it.
What's the next topic?
Financial Times. Are we long teeth?
We're long teeth. Who needs
long
teeth?
Teeth scarce.
You just drain fluids. You don't even need teeth. Oh my God. You guys could all try and do a round table on.
Yes. So first off, on the Financial Times thing, I filmed that on February 13th. So here we are, May 14th, for that to be released. So February, March, April, May. Yeah. So it's taken 3 months.
Was the stock up at that point?
I don't know. February.
How are you?
I was feeling like I'm always bullish. I mean, we're going higher, right? Like I'm perma-bulled, but I don't know. I think it was around $300. I mean, come off the November highs, and
yeah, we were in New York. We were
around that time. So, but it's just crazy. It took 3 months to produce that, right? And we're over here doing 2-hour content every night, and they feel bad for us. They're scared that about us being in the right spot. And it's like we're doing literal analysis every single day, talking to people at the front lines of the market, and they're worried about us, which is they're so bewildered, man. The traditional financial markets have no idea what's going on. I think it just really solidified and confirmed that the bull market hasn't even really started yet because everybody's still so behind.
So can we just go through each point?
Go
So
ahead.
look,
Yeah.
if you film something in February and then you see what happens in the market, why would you ever release it? If they recorded that and they launched it a week later after they edited it, I get it.
Yeah.
But after you saw what happened in the market, especially after MSTR True North World and Strategy World and what they reported in the last 5 minutes, it's like, I will try and remain professional because I've been coached by people not to use swear words or call people names. But I don't know how you could come out with that. The clips that will be taken out of that FT video, we will use in the documentary as an example of what not to do.
Yeah.
But you assume that they were paying attention after they recorded with Jeff. I think they probably recorded, then took their eyes off the ball and weren't paying attention whatsoever.
So it was very clear with what they actually put out. I mean, I did an hour interview with this woman, right? And I've got composite like a minute and a half of clips, right? And they even took everything I said out of context too, right? Which was incredibly annoying because I'm explaining what's going on, like slicing the risk, and just simply I had like all of my thoughts that I wanted, like here's the points I want to hit, and hit him very sharp, very clean, and they like pieced pieces together that make it seem almost like I was just incredibly risky, and I think there's no risk in this trade at all. And it was just so strange. Like that was what they picked. Like there were so many other things that were heavier and juicier that were actually informative, but they just scrapped all of it. And they did the same with Saylor's piece. They had this woman on that was saying like the balance sheet is, they have loads and loads of debt on their balance sheet. It's like, you clearly haven't looked at their balance sheet. That like they literally had I don't see how you feel comfortable saying that stuff in front of a camera if you actually have no fucking clue what's going on. It was crazy.
What they were trying to do is they were trying to do a soft hit piece is just how I viewed it.
And turns out to be the biggest marketing piece of the year for Bitcoiners.
Honestly, that's how it came. That's how it came off. And I mean, and to Green's point, I really don't think that they were paying attention to it after they recorded it. And because if they were, they probably would have changed things up a little bit. Especially that point about the teeth. I know everyone's been talking about it, but the fact that she said that and they kept it in is unbelievably hilarious. Yeah. And now she's never going to live it down. Someone's probably going to come out with a meme coin on Solana about it called Teeth and Tooth or something. So it is just going to be a whole situation, especially as we start to run higher. They're going to have to eat their words, and people are going to be clipping that up, and they're going to be making them look rather foolish in hindsight.
Yeah, a lot of people are saying, never trust someone else's editor or trust journalists. That's the exact reason why we're making a documentary. We want to tell the stories ourselves, and we've got a team of Bitcoiners that's filming this documentary, and we're going to be able to tell the story the way we want to tell the story, and not rely on anybody else telling the story, because clearly everybody else out there who thinks they know what's going on has got it wrong. And they're concerned about us for making 3,000% returns. They can't even conceptualize an asset where you can actually store your energy without decay. They don't understand technology. They don't understand what's clear to me. What I think is happening is there's this intelligence gap that's happening with people that haven't used computers, don't understand AI, are not using the internet, and leveraging Google. Like I grew up and was born with Google, so I've like Googled everything since I was a little kid, and now I'm using AI. I'm like AIing everything, and there's just a huge knowledge gap between those that have not done that and those that have, and I feel like there's like Bitcoin fits within that knowledge gap.
Well, there's a knowledge gap and there's a humility gap as well. She flat out said, "I don't understand this, but I'm going to short it."
Yeah.
And Jeff, she felt bad for your portfolio.
I don't
she
like.
was condescending, and let's not use her name. Look, that's absurd. By the way, this will continue to look. They'll get the S&P 500. The stock will do another 10x. People that bought bought 2 years ago will have a 100x. 10 times 10 is 100. So that's where I get the two 10x's. That's why they did the additional shares that they could then float in the future. This was all voted on earlier this year. I got into an argument with Frances Coppola, the British economist, whatever, a couple of years ago, and she blocked me. She said, Bitcoin is not scarce because you could divide it into 100 million Satoshis. She said, if I have a slice of pizza, I could keep on dividing it into slices to feed the whole world. And I was like, you can divide a slice of one pizza to feed the whole world. You're just not getting a lot, right? And she blocked me, and I'm like, you might be, I'll just say it. You're dumb. That's why that movie is called Dumb Money. And you know what? If you're a credentialed professor of economics and you don't understand Austrian economics and monetary debasement, because I asked Grok or ChatGPT, it's not taught in any of the Ivy League schools. And what Tad Smith said, the brilliant Tad Smith, is I was a professor at NYU. I'm not mocking Tad at all. I was a professor at NYU. Tim, you did the interview. That clip is on the internet, right? You can tell you how old I am. I'm saying the internet, the interwebs. And it says I was a professor of economics, and I didn't realize, if you take a look at the OECD nations, that it's about 7% monetary debasement per year, plus 2% for inflation. So your hurdle rate is 9. And then if your risk-free return is 4%, 9 and 4 is 13. You're gaining no relative wealth. I didn't say this. Tad Smith, the brilliant guy, said that. And he's like, well, your relative wealth is not growing at all. And so we have people that are being condescending to you. I don't like that. I would love to do you know what? I would do a debate. Let me be clear. No, I'm going to say it right now. The Financial Times, I will donate $10,000 to the charity of their choice if they do a live debate with me. I want to be very clear. The Financial Times, I will donate $10,000 to any charity anywhere in the world and send it. I want to make sure that this is cut and done. I'm pulling off the gloves. And if you're too chicken to do it, I'll just donate the $10,000 and say, oh, I donated this to charity, because you're too dumb and condescending to have a conversation about this. The gloves are off.
Hell yeah.
So that's where I stand. I want this to be cut, make it go viral and wild. And you know what? If they don't do it and they don't respond to this, I will make sure this is a meme to go around. We will meme them with the tooth meme of the thing like this, going around, right? We all saw that. What do they want? They want to donate to a charity or not? And by the way, if she's so good at investing, because obviously
she's the markets columnist.
She came in 5th from the bottom out of 1,030. I listened to the whole video. I'll tell you what. Let's do 2-1. We'll let the internet prove to see who got it right. And we'll go 2-1 to see if you put up 10 grand and I'll put up 20 grand, and I'm calling you out. I'm tired of this crap. And by the way, Paul Krugman, Muhammad El Arian, all of you clowns, it's the same offer.
The helmet is off.
The helmet's off. I got a Coke. And you know what? You guys go do your things, MSTR True North, to go contact those people. Muhammad El Arian gets on CNBC, and Joe Kerner goes, what do you think about Bitcoin? Muhammad El Arian's like, Bitcoin, what? We're making 4% on a sovereign note. And then I just cue the story that I just said about Tad Smith. I don't know how you can listen to this crap, and people aren't animated. Jeff, I said this to you before, and I'll be done in 2 seconds. Your professionalism and your calmness to have these type of conversations, I don't have that skill set. I don't. And with that, I will put my money where my mouth is. Anybody can call me anytime. You guys know how to get in contact with me, the Financial Times. I think they're chicken. We had different words because I'm Gen X. I can't say those words because they're not socially acceptable now, but I think they're chicken. They won't do it. I'm almost done with my rant. I'll drop off. And you know what, guys? Maybe I should stick to a Diet Coke because there's no sugar in it, because that's what, Brandon just said. I want to call
sugar
out.
High.
Yeah, Grain has
a sugar high. He's got the gloves off.
Right,
He's like,
gloves off. I feel great. I hope you guys feel great.
Yeah.
And I think this is good TV. We're not even on TV. I don't even know what this restream thing is. I can't figure this out.
We've got 35,000 people here that just
35,000 people.
Yeah, that saw you do a $10,000
No, I'm not even done yet with this rant. They got to hear. So when I was at Strategy World, they're like, what do you guys do? I'm part of MSTR True North. What's that? I'm like, we have anywhere 10 to 12,000 people, sometimes 35,000 people on a Wednesday call. And they go, what do you talk about?
Yeah.
I'm like, it says MSTR True North. That's what we talk about, right?
We like the stuff.
And you talk about it for how long? Like 20 minutes? I'm like, nah, 2 hours. And people stay on for 2 hours? I'm like, yeah. So anyway, that's where we're at.
Yeah.
I'll put them all in my crosshairs right there and be like, look, I'll donate money to charity, to ASPCA, Save the Dogs or Cats, whatever. LaDoger, you in for this? I need you to meme this.
Yeah.
Tim,
Save the dogs. Save the dogs.
Tim, you're going to be I don't want to point. Tim, you get to be the panelist. I'll fly to New York. We'll do it in person. So Tim, will you be the panelist to do this?
Let's go.
Let's go higher.
I think Vibes Capital would support this too. Yeah.
Yes.
Vibes Capital would be all over this.
Right. We'll do that. I don't know. A guy that used to wear a helmet. What are you scared of?
Yeah. Put it out there. Somebody clip it up. Throw it at him at Financial Times. So Financial Times has 1.22 million subscribers. So they felt comfortable putting that out, which is crazy.
We have
but they also haven't tweeted since like 2023. If you take a look at their page.
Oh, the YouTube has 1.2 million subscribers, and they do.
Well, but their Twitter has millions as well. Yeah, and that's why I say it's a humility gap, and I don't even know if they'll bite on it. When you have someone interviewing you that says, not only did I lose money on my trade, not only do I not understand it, but I'm still going to exert caution over it, that just shows what you're dealing with. These individuals are arrogant in their stupidity, and you just kind of have to let them stay that way. And when a burrito costs $40 and guac costs $5 and they can't afford it, they'll look back on these times and think they should invest. That's all that's going to happen with it. They're not going to change their minds, and if they do change their minds, they're not going to admit it, not publicly.
It's so I'm so baffled that everybody's so bewildered, right? I knew this was happening, but it shows so clearly how behind so many people are, right? These are people that literally write articles about markets that are supposedly at the front of like what's going on in the markets. And then proceeded at the end of it was, I still don't get this thing. I've been following Bitcoin for 7 years. I still don't get this thing. Had a conversation with Saylor, had a conversation, like an hour conversation with me, and continues to say they don't get it. And purposely cuts out all the pieces where I talked about the things that what's happening. So it seems so strange. It's like, are they trying to prevent other people from getting it too? Do they actually get it? Is this a PSYOP? Like it's like you start to think, right? This is so crazy. Like, how do you not get it? Like, this has got to be like this is a PSYOP. It's got to be a PSYOP.
That's why I've added befuddled and Smeckledorf to the list.
Smeckledorf. It's great.
I don't even know what a Smeckledorf
in addition
is.
to being befuddled. Yeah. And bewildered. Yeah. Smeckledorf, for sure.
Look, folks, do not attribute to, I think I made this term up. Maybe I didn't. Do not attribute to a conspiracy which is most likely due to stupidity. And I hate using that word, or incompetence. Do not attribute a conspiracy to something that is most likely mediocre thinking. And that's what I would say to them. If I would not be any more successful than FT if I followed their advice. And that's the reason why I have multiple helmets. I'm trying to make spit that out as I'm talking. But
so here's a crazy part. Here's a crazy stat. Markets Financial Times was bought for $1.5 billion in 2015. So they're now owned by the Nikkei, I think, and they're a private company. But I think they're probably valued at, I don't know, $3 billion or something like that. Just taking monetary supply. They're valued at. It's just crazy that company is worth that much, and this is their viewpoint on things. I haven't looked at any of their other stuff, and it just like. I can't look at any of their stuff anymore. It was like credibility evaporated. Like Financial Times is completely roasted on X. Like if anything comes up on Financial Times from here on out, roasted, like brand ruining. Anybody on Twitter that was alive today looking at Twitter X feed will never look at Financial Times ever again. Right? Like no credibility. Like you just like totally nuked a whole potential cohort of people that could pay for your product. I don't know. This whole thing's crazy.
So you know what though? But you know, I love reading the comments as they're going by. Somebody said, you know, aliens. When we were at Strategy
Was it just
World,
aliens? I missed that one.
yeah,
Did it just say alien?
maybe they thought maybe you know what?
Oh, it's not
I don't
comparison.
think I'm an alien, but maybe I am an alien. I wouldn't know. But it's not because it's aliens.
Yeah.
So look, if you go to Strategy World and MSTR True North there, the conference within the conference within the conference, you go there and all of a sudden, wow, we're the normal people. Everybody is happy, smiling, because they know if you cannot retire now, you will be able to retire at some point in the future. You'll be able to pay for your kids' college. You'll be able, you know that there's a hope that if you don't have a high-paying job, but you do what's necessary, that you will be able to retire. Okay? So with that, when you go to a conference, it's different than any other event. And you'll see that also at the Bitcoin conference, that people are happy and having fun and want to talk to people. But then when you go back to the real world, which you're surrounded by regular people that don't get anything that I just ranted about, you're like, and they're saying, oh, we can't even buy eggs because they're sold out and they're $12 a dozen. You're like, what? And so then you come back and you're like, well, maybe there's a better way. And like, I don't think there is a better way. I'm like, you're just not paying attention. I feel bad for those people. I truly do, because they just don't know. And Saylor has 4 million followers. And I'm like, really? You're making that comment to a guy that has 4 million followers and and they concede everything. Accretive dilution, best performing stock in 5 years. You know, they roll through all the stats. I'm like, oh yeah, we don't get it. I'm like, what don't you get?
I bet you money she does not know a lot about Michael Saylor. She did just enough to get through that interview. She did not do a deep dive on Saylor whatsoever, which is why she's bewildered, befuddled, and Smeckledorfed. Like what she said, what she said made no sense. The teeth example, the fact that she said that she shorted and she was wrong, that she doesn't get it. She didn't know. She did not understand who Michael Saylor was. She did not understand what he was doing, and she did not understand Bitcoin. She did not understand strategy. She was completely in over her head and was trying to sound smart. That's how it comes off.
But Adrian, let's just assume everything you're saying is correct. I don't know how you post a video like this 3 months after you record it. You would have to look at it and be like, oh, let me check to make sure. I don't even know
what makes you think that people are that self-aware. Have you seen what's online these days? like people are not that self-aware, and an institution like the Financial Times will not be that internally aware. They're interested in getting clicks, and their calculus at that time when Jeff recorded the interview was the stock is down, it's not doing well. This is the perfect time for us to release this video, and it probably got lost in translation. They didn't do any follow-up, and they released it anyway. She talked about her teeth.
Yeah,
like let's just simplify it. She talked about her teeth.
I know. I think one of the things that I think I'm struggling to grasp here with these reporters is that they fail to recognize brilliance. Right. I feel like true brilliance is recognizing brilliance, like when you can see it. And when I first saw Saylor speak, I was like, oh my God, that guy's brilliant. I need to listen to more. And like, and then you follow it, right? And you keep following it. And I don't know how you can have a conversation with that guy, like an hour. I'm presuming it's an hour conversation where he drops these knowledge bombs about quadratic financial flywheel, or whatever it was. I'm assuming 90% of the conversation got cut out. And how can you not finish that conversation and not be like, whoa, I need to do a lot more here.
It was in there. She was like surprised.
Yeah. Well, she was like,
okay,
Whoa.
I need to take a walk around the block.
Yeah.
But that was as far as it went.
But then proceeded to have the soliloquy at the end of about like, I don't get this thing. Teeth are more scarce than Bitcoin. You know, it's like, hold on.
Yeah.
You stopped there and like you didn't go any further. Right? Like,
Well, brilliance
what?
may recognize, brilliance may recognize brilliance, but stupid is as stupid does. That's just the way we got to think about it.
Okay, look, Adrian, you can now be my best friend with that Forrest Gump quote. Okay, that is awesome. Stupid is as stupid does, and sometimes people serve as an example of what not to do. The other thing that I could tell you that people are really bewildered about, and where I'm different from a lot of people, this is not financial advice, but I think that when you make life-changing money, take off 20% off the top, pay your taxes, and go live an awesome life. And I've received lots of financial advice. If you never sell it, you never have to pay the taxes. And I'm like, well, how do I get a new helmet? Because the white one's 10 years. They're like, no, you don't get a new helmet. When you die, you give all the money to your kids, and then they get to buy whatever they want. And I'm like, and so if I ever talk to the Financial Times person, they're like, wait, you actually sold some of the stuff that, Bitcoin-backed treasuries and derivatives and options? I'm like, yes. But then you have to pay taxes. I'm like, yes. I can't get out of pay. Yes, I have to pay taxes. And they're like, why would you ever do that? You're not supposed to sell it. I'm like, well, I don't want to live in a tent as a homeless person, so I have to spend money. And so we became good at it. When you're in this for 8 years, like me, what I do is I sell 20% when it's life changing. So I don't think they get anything. I don't.
Yeah. Weird. It's weird. Anyway, whole thing's weird. The Vibes Capital Management acquired some teeth today, so they're long teeth. I think they're offering a preferred enamel product, and I think it pays 8% APY. So keep an eye out for that. Vibes Capital Management. They're doing it. They're doing it big. Okay, let's hit the last.
Still on my Bitcoin grill. I'm still going to do that.
The Bitcoin grill. I think you should, and remember to pay your taxes and then get the Bitcoin grill per Grain's advice. I think we got to hit on Bitcoin treasury companies because there's been an explosion, right? We have seen there's a movement has begun, as Tim Kotzman would say on the Hurdle Right podcast, and we are off to the races. And we're going to see a lot more of these hitting the scenes. So I want to get people's thoughts and perspectives. We've seen some really boom and kind of bust movement in the equity market for some of these companies. A lot of excitement. We saw this with 21. We've now seen it with Nakamoto and Asset. So yeah, just want to get some thoughts. What you guys are seeing, what you guys are thinking.
I could chime in.
Hit it.
Look, Strategy's got almost a 5-year track record. It's got Michael Saylor. They've made all the gears in the transmissions. They have all these different products. They have an event. We have a conference within a conference within a conference. You've got LaDoger in here, right? Can I say where you're from? Where you from?
Yeah, I'm from Taiwan.
Yeah, but that's not where you actually live.
Oh, I live in Bangkok.
Right. So this guy flies you're in New York right now, right?
Yeah, I'm with him, so I'm in New York.
Are you wait, how do we know it's you and not an alien?
I'm
Tim, pinch him.
An AI agent.
It might be an alien, but he's really here.
Yeah, I'm here.
It's really right. So we have people that fly in from 20 different countries. And by the way, I did not know there was a flight from Reykjavik directly to Orlando. And I'm like, hey, why does that exist? And a really smart person says to me, really, Grain, you're that dumb? And I'm like, what? Why is there a direct flight from Reykjavik to Orlando? I don't get it. You ever think of Disney World? I'm like, oh, people in Iceland want to go to Disney World. I didn't know that. I mean, I should know that, but I don't know that. I mean, that's not my area of expertise, flights around the world. Wait, what was I talking about?
BTC treasury companies.
Oh, BTC treasury companies.
We got to bring it back?
Right, bring it back.
We got to bring it back.
I might be a little bit on the spectrum, but I don't think I am. I think I'm completely normal.
That's what somebody on the spectrum would say.
It's the sugar in the Coke. That's all it is.
We're all on the spectrum.
BTC treasuries. Look, if I want to deploy money, I want to see a proven track record over time and especially the company that builds the metrics and has the metrics and calculates these things. It's a proven depth in the executive team that's done it before, that understands software, that uses AI. all the Michael Saylor qualities, all the Phong Lee, all the executive staff, getting things done with the SEC. Oh, by the way, they petitioned FASB to change the accounting rules because none of the accountants would ever do that because the accountants are mediocre. And if somebody says, oh, you're being harsh on accountants, well, why didn't you change the fair value accounting if you're so brilliant? No, you're not. You're mediocre. So my point about this is that if somebody is capable of having a company that changes the way you look at everything, I think that there's a premium for that just on that stock because they're that great. And every other company wants to emulate it. I think the fast followers are great. I think that they're great companies that the ones that have a longer track record, those are more investable. The other ones are more speculative. So anyway, with that said, if you just look at, I want the other ones to be successful, but they don't have a proven track record if they've been doing it for 3 weeks.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
What I think has happened here is that this maybe I'll go this way. Basically, strategies coming into the market, and they've plowed their way into the market, right? And they've set the stage, and they're very transparent in what they're doing. They're looking to get $3 trillion of the fixed income market into Bitcoin. They're securitizing Bitcoin. And that's what they're doing. They're incredibly transparent. They're not going to go play around in the sandbox somewhere else and go do some, go waste some time. They're not going to go waste time or human energy to go do anything else. They're focused. They're laser focused on what they're doing. And in order to bring that much capital into the market, you have to be that trustworthy source that is laser focused in the market and doing that thing. And that's the only thing that you do. Now, that provides significant headroom and capacity for all of these other Bitcoin treasury companies to come to the scene, to go tap fringe pools of capital and use a slightly different strategy in accumulating Bitcoin, right? So you've got all these companies that are going to go a slightly different route. Maybe they've got a cash flowing business in the healthcare realm, and they've got cash coming in the door, and they just capitalize that and throw it into Bitcoin. And maybe they start, maybe tapping insurance pools or, reinsurance pools, or there's different areas of capital that can come in the door and securitize Bitcoin in a different way. So I think there's capacity for those. That being said, there's significantly different risk return profile on those equities than strategy. Somebody that's been doing it for 5 years and has a proven track record. Metaplanet, different risk return metric as well. I mean, somebody was asking here about Metaplanet and moving strike warrants. That's a phenomenon that happens in the Japanese market. It's different than the U.S. market. So there are what we've seen and what we saw at Strategy World as well. There's going to be a MSTR in every single international jurisdiction in the world, and I think we saw 10 different countries represented that are running businesses in each one of those different jurisdictions to run the strategy playbook in those different jurisdictions. So those people that live in those different places have access to Bitcoin exposure because they don't have access to buy Bitcoin, or they can't buy the ETF or anything like that. So they can buy an equity in their local jurisdiction. So there's huge, there's going to be just a different risk return profile. There will be losers in this market as well. I think there are going to be companies that kind of get buried under their mNAV and have, liquidations at some point in the future. I used to think that there wasn't going to be a bear market in the future, and my perspective on that has significantly changed. Understanding how some of the businesses are structured and thinking about what that may look like in the future. So there are people there are going to be companies that take more risk, right? Strategy is the grade A investment grade, over collateralized, 500-pound gorilla. And then there are other companies that may take different risk profiles in order to stack sats as fast as possible.
May I add one thing on top of that?
Yeah, go ahead.
So about strategy, right? So there's one thing that strategy has that all these other companies don't have, right? Strategy is orange pilling their own employees, right? Strategy is there. Some of them are watching this live stream right now. I saw some employees like in the chat actually. So 1,700 employees. Strategy flies them from all the way from China, from India, from Poland, all the way to headquarters to get trained, They're building a community. They're building a Bitcoin community inside their company. That this is something that no one else can do, and no one else is doing right now. So I think this is also like highly bullish and unique and hard to replicate. Just my opinions here.
Yeah. It is hard to replicate, but if you have a cash flowing business, I think this is where like the critical component, like if you have a cash flowing business and a diversified cash flow, those companies should exist into perpetuity because they should manage their business. I think one of the critical components here is risk management. If you're running a Bitcoin treasury, if you're running a balance sheet company, very similar to an insurance company, again, if you're running a balance sheet company, you need to manage your risk. What is your risk? Your risk is volatility risk. It's debt covenant risk. It's duration risk. It's, market risk, correlation risk. And it's just a completely different risk profile than a traditional company may be used to. So there's so many things you could be doing on that front. Monte Carlo simulations, running downside situations, having an understanding of the legal dynamics of what you can do and what you can't do in certain markets, right? Like for example, Bitcoin's tradable 24/7, 365. But you can't, if you wanted to buy back shares or stock, you can't do that 24/7, 365. There are rules and regulations around it, and they're pretty strict. So, there's this concept. Risk management is just incredibly important for any of these companies running this and keeping an eye on that. And I think that's something that True North will be able to help do here in the future is keep an eye on leverage in the market, right? In past cycles, leverage has occurred on Bitcoin exchanges, like on crypto exchanges. Now leverage is occurring in the equity markets. And that's something we can keep an eye on and track as we move into the future here. Anybody else? We're almost at 2 hours 10.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So look, there are these really fancy terms that we use in Silicon Valley. And so I'm going to start off with them. There's 4 of them when you do a tech company. You start off with guinea pigging. Somebody's got to be the test case. Then you go to dog fooding. You use your own product to see if it actually works. Then you migrate to first mover advantage. And then after that, you have the 800-pound gorilla. And what happens in each phase, you have the detractors and the people that don't know what they're talking about that prevent the brilliance from happening. And so what happens is you can't bypass these steps. So now what's happened is in each country, you will have a company that's trying to do it, that guinea pigs it to be a fast follower. They guinea pig it, it works. Then they have to make sure, we need to do more of it and more of it to see if it works over time. And then they have first mover advantage. Anybody that comes in second place, if they do it right, they lose to the 800-pound gorilla. This is known this is nothing new in Silicon Valley. And if I tell this to the brilliant people, they're like, well, how do you know that's going to happen? Well, even when it happens and you talk to the 800-pound gorilla, they're still in bewilderment. And I look at them, it's like, have you ever gone to Silicon Valley? Do you know what a VC does? And I know that I'm on a rant, but after a while, it's like, you're mediocre.
Yeah, I mean, some of these equities will move faster than strategy. Absolutely. Like they've got a different BTC yield. They're acquiring at a different pace. I mean, Metaplanet, we've seen it, right? And Metaplanet is moving as a rocket. But if it's moving one way faster, it also moves the other way faster. Just something to keep in mind. It's got a different liquidity profile. If you needed to turn around and get money out, it might be more difficult in those type of equities. So you got to think about the risk return profile of a smaller company is higher, right? Higher risk, higher reward. And I think it's going to be the same for many of these. So a lot of due diligence is necessary. And a lot of people probably just take flyers on some of these things. And there's a lot of opportunity to continue to, fill the pockets of education and research on all of these other equities, right? We're in the golden age of Bitcoin treasury companies. This is like year 1. Imagine what this looks like 10 years from now. They're going to be, I don't know, 25,000, maybe not 25,000, but 1,000 Bitcoin treasury companies that people are going to have to keep an eye on. And everybody's going to be talking, what's the next one, right? What's the next one? Strategy is going to be a $10 trillion company. And we're going to be talking about what the next Bitcoin treasury company is. So anyway, we're at 2 hours and 10 minutes. We should probably wrap it. Let's go around the board. Final thoughts. Adrian, we'll start with you.
Yeah. So I'll just give some quick thoughts on the treasury companies. I think that people that are talking about it being a bubble are being a little bit premature. I think that what we're seeing is a new trend, and for some people, this trend is going to be a trade. So there's going to be winners and losers, like you said. That's the law of averages. It's just going to happen. And the way these companies are going to handle things is going to be, there's going to be more leverage in one area, more less leverage in others. But I do think this is going to be an emergent trend, and it's not a bubble as much as it's a change in a paradigm that we're going to see really scale up. So while there will be winners and losers, I don't want people to think about finding the next MicroStrategy. They have to find a differentiator besides what can be the next MicroStrategy. So don't just go throwing your money into things, and keep your eye on the ball. Bitcoin is the ball, and don't take your eye off the ball is what I would say.
Somebody asked first Mag 7 to adopt Bitcoin strategy, and I think it's strategy. Over to Tim and LaDoger in New York.
Good. Oh, I'm just so happy to be here. Thanks for having me here,
Yeah.
guys. And we'll
Thanks for
see you
joining.
in Vegas. Yeah, you guys are doing amazing work. I love this.
Yeah. Thanks for the support.
Thanks, LaDoger.
Thank you.
LaDoger in the house. I think in the future you're going to see lots of new things, but I outlined 3 of them over the last couple of days. I think you're going to see what I like to call a Bitcoin treasury strategist at every Bitcoin treasury company. It's basically just someone to do investor relations, community engagement. But in my mind, I feel like a strategist at every company can also be the next group of leaders. I mean, we're so early, we're so nascent with all of this that, like, at a certain point, it's just you're going to need the next level, the next group of leaders. And I think that can be the strategist, the Bitcoin treasury strategist. Then above that, maybe you have like a director of Bitcoin strategy, right? Like a Dylan LeClaire. And then above that, right, you have an executive like a Phong, like a Saylor that's just beating the table, pounding the table on Bitcoin. And that's, at least the start of like your Bitcoin treasury team. So
Yeah.
Completely I was just totally blown away with one of my posts when I'm like, hey, who would be open to working for a Bitcoin treasury company? And there's like over 100 comments of people like me. And my one takeaway from that is when I click on people's profiles and like we're all just people on a journey, the thing that came to my mind first was I started looking to see if they had any videos, because that's like the best way to get to grasp like who is this person. So I would just encourage someone, whether it's long form like Ben Workman or whether it's a video, to just get involved. And this reminds me of the early days of the shale revolution, right? My background's in oil and gas, and I went and lived in an Airbnb in West Texas for 6 weeks to set up an office. And so many people, I mean, I'm from a very small town in Pennsylvania. So many people are like, well, there's no opportunity in my town. Well, go to where the opportunity is. It's like the answer to the ultimate question of life, the universe, and everything in regard to Bitcoin treasury companies is that you have like 42 days, 42. You have 42 days to make this happen. Like make it to Vegas, make it to Prague, or reach out and connect.
Make it to New York.
Make it to New York, whatever you need to do. But like the answer is like hitchhike if you need to where the opportunity is. And it was in West Texas. Now it's in cyberspace. So I think, there's just so much opportunity for so many people, and super exciting. MSTR over shale, definitely.
Yeah. and your X profile is your resume these days. And like the content that you provide and that you create that's your resume. You don't need a traditional resume anymore. But you're totally right. All of these companies that are adopting a Bitcoin treasury strategy are going to need a conduit to the market. Just like Dylan LeClaire is, right? Dylan LeClaire is a conduit to the market. He's communicating within the market. The people love him. He's going on podcasts. He's showing up at, MIT and Bitcoin investor things, right? And that's what all those companies are going to need. Yeah. Over to Dan.
Yeah, I think there's an interesting distinction with all these Bitcoin treasury companies popping up is like, so most companies hold US treasuries on their balance sheet, but most companies aren't banks. And so I think moving forward, there's going to be a lot of companies who adopt a Bitcoin treasury strategy, just sweep their cash flows into Bitcoin. That'll be hugely successful. And it's going to, the best the best analysts of those companies are those who can analyze the actual operating businesses successfully. And then you've also got these financial providers, these financial institutions that are creating derivative products on top of Bitcoin, like Strategy. And I still believe that's a winner take most business. A lot of people are going to be copycats and try to do that. But who's going to buy the preferred shares of a company with less collateral? Who's going to buy the convertible note with, that's not over collateralized? Who's going to buy the options on a less liquid stock? This, that, and the next thing with a stock they can't trust. So I think Strategy is very much so like a bank. I think Bitcoin treasury companies, there's going to be a lot of them. Some will be successful in offering financial products. Many won't. But the strong companies sweeping their cash flows into Bitcoin, I think, is a trend that's here to stay. And then Strategy is its own beast.
Great points. All really great points. I think you're right. I might disagree with on the preferred stock because it's all going to have different, like the market's going to determine what the risk is, but that'll be exciting. That'll be exciting to see. I look forward to doing overviews of all those preferred stocks with you, Dan. Okay. Over to you, Grain.
Yeah. Look, it's very liberating for me not to wear the helmet. So I appreciate not wearing it. There's some reasons. When the podcasts come out, it'll explain why I wore the helmet and what went on. Some of the people ask how I meet these influential people, or now I'll be on the stage in next week or 2 weeks in Las Vegas or in Prague. Once you put yourself out there, get a blue check mark, say things that maybe only appeal to a very small percentage of the market, the very successful people will be attracted to you based upon your confidence. Brian Tracy has this great video. I didn't want to post it, but Tim posted it and then I retweeted it. So my takeaway with this is I have the ability now, okay? And I will show my face. If they want to know my name, sure, you guys will find my name in 2 minutes. And with that said, I will debate anybody at any given time. And the better their credentials are, the more likely I'll post more money to donate to a charity if they do it. And I don't think I'll have any takers. I think I'll have none of them that will take that. I want to be very clear about this. If they do that, great. But they better come with their A game. And if they want to bring 3 against 1 or 4 against 1, I'm fine. If I get to bring my team with me, they will never take the deal. So the takeaway for this is my face is revealed. I will fly anywhere in the world. I will have Tim be the moderator, right? And I'll bring my crew if they bring their crew, and we will all go there. I will pick a stadium to do this if necessary. And the gauntlet is thrown down. That is it. Are they willing to accept it? And if they're not, then they're mediocre. And I would not waste any of my time on them.
We'll put it on Polymarket.
We'll put it on Polymarket.
We'll get a betting
Could
system
Grain
going.
out debate whichever Nobel Prize winning laureate in economics. Pick them. By the way,
sponsored by Coke.
let's just run through it. Financial Times, anybody at the Forbes clowns, Wall Street Journal, Muhammad El Arian, Paul Krugman, Francis Coppola, whatever person you want to pick. Nicholas Taleb, Black Swan. I'm like, sure. But whatever else. You want to put me on the Joe Rogan show? I'll do that. You want Joe Rogan to interview me with somebody else? I'll do it.
We got to get Saylor on Joe Rogan before you.
Get
Saylor.
I'm sorry. Okay. Guys, make it happen. Meme it happen. We're good.
You got to meme it. You just got to meme it to reality. Yeah.
Yeah. And by the way, Saylor said that he looks so much better in AI than he does in real life. You got to appreciate it.
Yeah. Love it. Awesome. Thanks, Grain. Yeah, we'll get you on a debate stage. I hope somebody takes you up on that, plus the charity. That would be nice. Okay, my final comments are we've got a bunch of exciting things on the horizon. And, there are a lot of shiny new things to get distracted by in the market. But like the next 6 months are why I entered this trade 2 years ago. And this is one of the primary things I've been waiting for and sitting in this stock for a very long time. I think this is a once in a lifetime moment of strategy potentially getting S&P inclusion and the front running of what that trade might be. And I think there's a lot of excitement for the next couple of quarters, especially you've got all these companies out now that are buying Bitcoin progressively, just getting stronger, and growing faster and faster. So the flywheel has started. It's getting faster. It's like this wildfire has been ignited and it's spreading really quickly. It's like a virus. So really excited for the future. I think we're going higher. There's so many things to be happy about and excited for. So that's all I've got. Thank you everybody for the time. Episode 26.